Chapter 1401. The gap was too big. In the continent of God, Lu Ming could injure a 4th-level martial emperor when he used the chaotic sky seal. In this place, Lu Ming was no match for the 2 burly men in the early stage of the 3rd-level martial emperor, let alone the 4th-level martial emperor. Moreover, they were ordinary martial emperors. What if he met a genius? How strong would he be? It seems that I was a frog in a well when I was trapped in this corner of the continent of God. Lu Ming clenched his fists. While feeling the strong pressure, Lu Ming was full of anticipation. His blood was boiling with excitement. Yuan continent was the real big stage. It was colorful and it was far from what the continent of God could compare to. On the fighting ring, the 2 exchanged hundreds of moves. In the end, both of them were injured and left the place. However, after the 2 left, 2 more people went up to fight. After that, Lu Ming watched 5 battles, all of which were between emperors. As expected, most of the emperors here were much stronger than the emperors in the continent of God. Lu Ming more or less had an idea. After that, Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and the others returned to their residence. After returning to his residence, Lu Ming first poured the life water on his second body. As expected, his second body glowed and its recovery speed greatly increased. Then Lu Ming continued to cultivate. In Yuanlu, the cultivation level below the martial emperor was too low. Only by breaking through to the emperor realm as soon as possible could he gain a foothold. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had been in Dragon God Valley for a month. During this period, Lu Ming would occasionally go out and buy some books to read. They were all about Yuanlu. As he had just arrived, he naturally had to understand the world he was in. On this day there were suddenly sounds of drums outside. It was the sound of drums. Someone was summoning them. Lu Ming ended his cultivation and walked out of the cave. He saw Long Yuanchuan standing in the valley. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Youths flew out from the various ice caves and stood in the valley. There were more than 1,000 of them. Lu Ming discovered that some of the youths who had come with him were progressing very quickly. Some of them were originally at the 8th level of the Spirit God realm, but now they had broken through and reached the 9th level of the Spirit God realm, or even the Great Circle of the Spirit God realm. These people were the top geniuses of the Master Teacher continent, and there was no way they would be lacking in terms of talent. As such, they were able to advance their cultivation by leaps and bounds. Alright, you newcomers have already been here for a month. You should have gotten used to it. Now there are still 3 months before your assessment. Now, I will explain in detail your assessment mission in 3 months. In 3 months, your assessment mission will be to explore a secret realm. Long Yuanchuan said. Explore a secret realm? Lu Ming and the others were all stunned. That's right. Only by walking out of the dungeon alive can one be considered to have passed the test and become an official disciple of the Divine Dragon Valley. Long Yuanchuan said. Many people's faces changed. It seemed that the secret realm was quite dangerous. Long Yuanchuan seemed to have seen through everyone's thoughts. He smiled and said, although this secret realm is dangerous, let me tell you, it is also a great opportunity. I don't know how many martial emperors and even sages want to enter, but they can't. Because this secret realm is a great emperor's secret realm. When he said the last sentence, Long Yuanchuan deliberately emphasized his voice. What? Great emperor's secret realm? Great emperor? Everyone, including Lu Ming, was stunned. They could not help but widen their eyes. Great emperor's secret realm? Could it be a secret realm left behind by a great emperor? A great emperor was a top expert in the primordial realm, an existence that dominated the world and ruled the sky. What kind of treasures would there be in a secret realm left behind by such a person? Everyone's eyes were burning with excitement. Even sages were out of their reach, let alone great emperors who were above sages. This is the first time that this great emperor's secret realm has been discovered. After investigation, only people below martial emperors can enter. Those above martial emperors are not allowed to enter. Even sages are not allowed to enter. Therefore, you must make good use of this time and raise your cultivation to the martial emperor level. According to the sages, martial emperors and above are not allowed to enter the great emperor's secret realm. However, it is not a problem for you to break through after entering. Therefore, if some martial emperors enter the great emperor's secret realm to break through to the martial emperor level, they will be able to seize the opportunity and obtain the treasures. Also, this time all the top forces in the Tsang state will send people in. This is the danger. Therefore, in the next 3 months, try to raise your strength as much as possible. You must grasp the opportunity yourself. Long Yuanchuan continued to explain. I see. After hearing this, Lu Ming finally had some answers to some of the doubts in his heart. Lu Ming finally knew why the Divine Dragon Valley Heavenly Deity sect and other sects would travel a great distance to the Divine Ruins continent to select disciples. It turned out that it was all because of the Great Emperor's secret realm. They recruited geniuses from various continents to enter the Great Emperor's secret realm. The Yuanlu was divided into many large states. The Tsang state was a large state in the south of the Yuanlu. The Divine Dragon Valley was a powerful force in the Tsang state. There were countless large and small forces in the Tsang state. However, there were a total of 13 top forces that stood at the peak of the Tsang state. These 13 forces were the overlords of the Tsang state. The Divine Dragon Valley was one of the 13 forces. In addition, the Heavenly Deity sect, Heavenly Universe Demon sect, Nine Heaven Sword sect and even the Heavenly King Hall that had caused chaos in the Divine Wilderness continent because of a Heavenly King token were also one of the 13 major forces. This time, these major forces would send people into the Great Emperor's secret realm. Therefore, these major forces would send people to the small continents overseas to recruit disciples. The D clan is not in the Tsang state. I wonder where they are. Lu Ming thought to himself. The Yuanlu was too vast and the Tsang state was only a small part of it. The books that Lu Ming had bought mostly introduced the Tsang state. Lu Ming was not too sure about the places outside the Tsang state. After the announcement, Long Yuanchuan left the place. However, these youths could not calm down. After that, they returned to their cave residences and cultivated in seclusion. It was obvious that they could break through to the monarch realm after entering the Great Emperor's secret realm. Therefore, if they raised their cultivation to the limit of the Supreme Being realm and broke through to the Emperor realm after entering the Great Emperor's secret realm, they would have an absolute advantage. Lu Ming began to place more of his attention on the embryonic form of the chaotic domain. Now, the embryonic form of the chaotic domain was getting closer and closer to its limit. As long as the embryonic form of the chaotic domain was cultivated to its limit, he would be able to break through to the Emperor realm. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. Dong, dong, dong. On this day there was an intense rumble outside. It was the sound of a drum being struck. It was the sound of the drum being summoned again. However, wasn't there a gathering 3 days ago to announce the Great Emperor's secret realm? Why was there a gathering now? With doubts, Lu Ming walked out of the cave residence. Outside the cave residence, 3 youths stood proudly. Chapter 1402. When the crowd gathered in the valley, they looked at the 3 young men in surprise. Just now, these 3 young men had sounded the drum. Why did the 3 of them sound the drum and gather the crowd? Everyone is here, right? One of the young men swept his gaze across the crowd and said plainly. No one made a sound. All right, I believe all of you have heard the news a few days ago. In 3 months, we will be entering the Great Emperor's mystic realm. The young man continued speaking with a smirk. Let me tell you, this is the good fortune that you have accumulated over several lifetimes. If it wasn't for this reason, all of you would never be able to join the Dragon God Valley, much less enter the Great Emperor's mystic realm. Therefore you have to seize this opportunity. Do you understand? The young man's voice reverberated throughout the valley. However, everyone could hear the strong disdain in his voice. It was like a prince looking down on a group of beggars. Many people frowned but did not make a sound. From their tone, these people should be locals. They weren't from a continent outside the Yuan continent like them. Since they were from the Yuan continent, no one knew if they were related to the upper echelons of the Dragon God Valley. Therefore, no one refuted the young man. All right, let's get down to business. The person in front of you is the peerless genius of the Dragon God Valley, young Master Yin Feng. Aren't you going to greet him? The young man continued speaking as he pointed at the young man in the middle. Among the 3 young men, the one in the middle was the leader. He looked to be in his early 20s. He wore a silver robe and his face was cold and arrogant. He looked at Lu Ming and the rest with disdain. Greetings, young Master Yin Feng. A few people cupped their fists. Humph, what kind of attitude is this? Let me tell you, young Master Yin Feng will be entering the Great Emperor's mystic realm as well. Now, I will give you a chance to submit to young Master Yin Feng and become his subordinates. After entering the Great Emperor's mystic realm, you will be under young Master Yin Feng's command. In the future, young Master Yin Feng will take care of you when you are in the Dragon God Valley. The young man's words finally exposed their true intentions. They wanted Lu Ming and the rest to submit to young Master Yin Feng and become his subordinates. Lu Ming sneered. The Great Emperor mystic realm was filled with opportunities. Naturally, outsiders like them wouldn't be the only ones to enter. The local elites of the Yuanlu's great sects would definitely enter as well. Yin Feng and the other 2 seemed to have a cultivation of the martial highness realm. They would definitely enter the trial too. They had a good idea. Now that they had recruited Lu Ming and the others, when they entered the Great Emperor Mystic Realm, they could make use of them to gain benefits for themselves. This was something that the crowd present could easily figure out with just a little thought. I'm sorry, but I'm used to being alone. I have no intention of becoming someone's subordinate. Goodbye. A bald young man said coldly before heading back to his cave. Whoosh. With a flicker, the young man who had spoken earlier appeared before the bald young man. Are you going to refuse? The native youth said coldly. I don't have the habit of being other people's dog. The bald youth sneered, implying that the other party was merely a dog of Yin Feng. You're courting death. The native youth's face turned gloomy and cold murderous intent was emitted. A lowly ant from a desolate island. It's already your fortune to be able to join the Divine Dragon Valley. You don't know how to be grateful and you dare to be arrogant in front of me, Yin Fei Zhang. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you will forget who you are. The native youth was called Yin Fei Zhang and he emitted a powerful aura. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The bald young man also emitted his aura, which was also at the Martial Highness realm. These youths were all peak existences in their respective continents. They were invincible among their peers and they looked down on others. All of them were proud and arrogant. How could they be willing to become someone's subordinate? Similarly, Yin Fei Zhang's cultivation was also at the Martial Highness realm. Why would he be afraid of someone of the same level? Hee then I'll let you know how weak you desolate island trash are. Attack, I'll give you 3 moves. Yin Fei Zhang said coldly. Why do I need you to give me a handicap? I'll defeat you in 10 moves. The bald young man shouted. He was also a proud person. A yellow halo emitted from the bald young man's body. It was the embryonic form of his domain. The embryonic form of his domain shrouded Yin Fei Zhang. Insignificant skill. Since you're overestimating yourself, I'll fulfill your wish. Yin Fei Zhang took a step forward and the embryonic form of his domain also emitted from his body. The 2 embryonic forms of their domains met in the air. But an unexpected scene occurred. The moment the 2 embryonic forms of their domains met, the bald young man's embryonic form of his domain instantly collapsed. The bald young man's face changed and he took a few steps back. Shwa. At this moment Yin Fei Zhang moved. In an instant, he appeared in front of the bald young man and sent a palm strike towards him. The bald young man's face turned grave. He exhaled and sent out a palm strike. Bam. When the 2 palms met, the bald young man's face changed. His body was pushed back and he spat out a mouthful of blood. How could this be? The bald young man looked at Yin Fei Zhang in disbelief. They were both at the Martial Highness realm, but he couldn't even withstand 1 move and was defeated. How was this possible? His self-confidence had suffered a severe blow. Many of the other youths were shocked. It wasn't that the bald young man wasn't strong, but Yin Fei Zhang was too strong. Domain martial technique. Lu Ming said a few words. He possessed part of 9 dragons' memories and his knowledge was extraordinary. He could tell at a glance that Yin Fei Zhang had used a domain martial technique. A domain martial technique could unleash the full power of a domain. Furthermore, a domain martial technique was very precious. Even in the major sects of Yuanlu, not everyone could cultivate it. Intent realm martial techniques existed in some small continents. But it was impossible for those small continents to have domain martial techniques. Just now Yin Fei Zhang had used a domain martial technique to defeat the bald young man. Now do you know how much of a trash you are? Do you really think you're an elite? Let me tell you, the reason why Dragon God Valley gathered you here is not because of how strong you are, but because your cultivation is too weak. In the Divine Dragon Valley, there are many geniuses who are already martial monarchs. They cannot enter the Great Emperor's mystic realm. There are too few people below martial monarchs. That is why they came to your remote villages to gather you here. Yin Fei Zhang said coldly. Many people were shocked. Dragon God Valley had recruited them as disciples not because of how strong they were or how talented they were, but because Dragon God Valley didn't have that many geniuses with weak cultivation. This was a great insult to the top geniuses of the various continents. Especially the bald young man. His face was ashen. If any of you don't agree, I don't mind crippling him or throwing him out. Anyway, you aren't the only disciples recruited from overseas. It won't hurt to cripple a few of you. Chapter 1403. Everyone's expression made Silver Flying Zhang's cold expression even more arrogant. He scanned the crowd and spoke again. If there's anyone else among you that would like to have a taste of my strength, feel free to step forward. I'll let you know how useless you are. Everyone looked at each other and no one stepped out. Silver Flying Zhang was too strong and no one had the confidence to win. Let me learn from you. A moment later, a young man in a yellow robe stepped forward. Good. You have guts. Then I will teach you a lesson. Silver Flying Zhang looked at the youth in the yellow robe and a sharp cold light flashed. The crowd retreated and made a large space. Silver Flying Zhang and the youth in the yellow robe stood opposite each other. The youth in the yellow robe didn't hide his strength. A dragon roar resounded throughout the valley and a yellow dragon appeared above his head. 9 golden chakras shone. This was the youth's bloodline. The youth in the yellow robe directly used bloodline fusion. Then a mountain peak appeared above the yellow dragon's head and emitted a strong pressure. An emperor rank spiritual weapon. So it's an emperor rank spiritual weapon. Do you think it's useful just because you have an emperor rank spiritual weapon? How naive. Silver Flying Zhang sneered. Swish. Then, his figure flashed and emitted a green radiance as he pounced towards the yellow dragon. The yellow dragon let out a dragon roar and its dragon claws stepped on the air as it pounced towards Silver Flying Zhang. At the same time, the mountain peak enlarged rapidly and suppressed Silver Flying Zhang. Swish. Yin Fei Zhang's figure flickered. His figures suddenly multiplied into 18. Each figure waved their hand, and a green chain flew towards the yellow dragon. The 18 chains were extremely fast. In an instant, they wrapped around the yellow dragon's body, binding it tightly. The yellow dragon struggled with all its might and roared continuously. However, the green chain was indestructible and couldn't break free. Suppress. The yellow dragon roared and used the mountain-shaped emperor rank spiritual weapon to suppress Silver Flying Zhang. Sky Wind Divine Technique. Silver Flying Zhang sneered as his green domain spread out and turned into a huge palm print that blasted towards the mountain peak. Dong. A thunderous explosion rang out. The cyan palm imprint was destroyed, but the mountain peak was also sent flying back. The emperor-ranked spirit weapon was sent flying by Silver Flying Zhang's bare hands. What a powerful domain martial technique. Lu Ming, who was in the crowd, could clearly see that the Silver Flying Octopus had been using a domain martial technique since the beginning. It was a type of domain martial technique that had a myriad of transformations. It brought out the power of the Silver Flying Octopus's wind domain to the extreme. It was extremely mysterious and its power was shocking. When the yellow-robed youth used bloodline fusion and combined it with the Emperor's spirit weapon, his battle prowess was definitely strong. In the continent of godly ruins, the yellow-robed young man would be able to defeat a martial emperor. He might even be slightly stronger than a first-layer martial emperor. However, he was still no match for Silver Flying Zhang, which showed how strong Silver Flying Zhang was. Then, Silver Flying Zhang's body flashed and appeared on top of the dragon's head. He slammed his palm down on the dragon's head. The earthen yellow true dragon let out a wail before exploding, revealing the yellow-robed young man's body. Silver Flying Zhang stepped on the yellow-robed young man's face, causing the yellow-robed young man to crash into the ground, creating a large crater. Humph, you want to go against me with such weak battle prowess? You're courting death. Silver Flying Zhang snorted coldly as he exerted force on the yellow-robed young man's face. The yellow-robed young man screamed miserably as he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Many people were indignant. On the side, Yin Feng and another young man looked on coldly as if they were looking at Silver Flying Zhang stepping on a chick. Is there anyone else who wants to fight with me? Come out. Silver Flying Zhang said loudly. No one said anything. Humph. Since no one said anything, I'll take it that you've agreed to side with young Master Yin Feng. Alright, let's sign the blood oath contract now. A scroll appeared in Silver Flying Zhang's hand. When he opened it, it was filled with inscriptions. What? You want us to sign the blood oath contract? No, we can't sign the blood oath contract. If we sign the blood oath contract, we'll really become your slaves and be controlled by you. Instantly, the scene was in an uproar as many people shouted. The blood oath contract was unique to Yuan continent. Once it was signed, it was equivalent to swearing a blood oath and it couldn't be violated. In that case, wouldn't they have to be controlled by Yin Feng for the rest of their lives? How could these proud and ambitious sky prides who came from different continents accept this? What's with the noise? Let me tell you, you have to sign it today even if you don't want to. Moreover, this blood oath contract isn't for life. It's only limited to the exploration phase of the secret territory. Do you understand? Silver Flying Zhang spoke, but the crowd was still angry and no one would sign it. What a bunch of idiots. Silver Flying Zhang started to lose his patience as he berated, Do you think you're sky prides? Let me tell you, in Yuan continent you're nothing. You're just a bunch of trash. If you don't side with young Master Yin Feng, I guarantee that you won't have a good life in the future. Yuan continent is filled with danger and ferocious beasts. I guarantee that you won't even know how you died. If young Master Yin Feng protects you, you'll have a good cultivation environment. This was a blatant threat. However, these words were indeed powerful and made many young men hesitate. That's right. Yuan continent was filled with experts. While there were opportunities, the danger level was also extremely high. They couldn't stay in Dragon God Valley and cultivate for the rest of their lives. They needed to go out and train. If Yin Feng did something to them, they would be in danger. Moreover, in a large sect like Dragon God Valley, it was indeed better to have a backer than to cultivate alone. Some young men started to be tempted. Alright, I'll sign it. Me too. Finally, someone spoke and agreed to sign the blood oath contract. A smile appeared on Silver Flying Zhang's face as he said, "That's more like it. Come up and sign it." More than 10 young men walked up and signed their names on the blood oath contract with their own blood. The young man in the yellow robe at Silver Flying Zhang's feet also signed the contract obediently. What about you guys? Silver Flying Zhang held the blood oath contract and walked to the front of the young women. He looked at them coldly. The young women's expressions changed. In the end, they clenched their teeth and signed the contract. You guys? Then Silver Flying Zhang held the contract and looked at the others. People had to lower their heads when they were under someone else's roof. Those few people also clenched their teeth and signed the contract. Soon about 50 people signed the blood oath contract. We won't sign it. All of a sudden, a deep voice sounded. Everyone looked over and saw that the one who spoke was an honest young man. Beside him, there were 2 people who looked exactly the same as this young man. Chapter 1404. You're not signing? The smile on Silver Flying Zhang's face disappeared and was replaced by a stern expression. Yes, we're not signing. We, the 3 Yuan brothers, will not be manipulated by anyone. One of the triplets said. Hee. Silver Flying Zhang laughed coldly and said, "It seems that if I don't cripple a few of you today, you will think that I won't be ruthless." After saying this, a green radiance emitted from Silver Flying Zhang's body and a cold killing intent was emitted. The triplets gathered together and looked at the Silver Flying badge cautiously. Shwa. Silver Flying Zhang immediately attacked. A green palm print flew towards the dantian of one of the triplets. Boom. The triplets shouted at the same time. Their auras were connected and merged seamlessly. Their auras also increased rapidly. One of the triplets punched out and clashed with Silver Flying Zhang's palm. With an explosion, Silver Flying Zhang's body trembled and flew backwards. The triplets also took a few steps back. Not bad. Silver Flying Zhang's face turned cold. He did not expect that the triplets could combine their auras and resist his domain martial technique. Kill? Silver Flying Zhang shouted and attacked the triplets again. However, the triplets stood together and their auras merged. They exchanged a few blows with Silver Flying Zhang, but the result was the same. They were evenly matched. Silver Flying Zhang could not defeat the triplets. Many people's eyes lit up. Although the local geniuses of the Yuan continent were powerful and had cultivated domain martial techniques, there were too many continents in the Yuan continent. However, there were too many continents outside the Yuan continent. There would always be some unimaginable prodigies who could fight against the native prodigies. As long as they could resist the local geniuses, they would not need to sign the blood oath contract. After exchanging more than 10 blows, Silver Flying Zhang was still unable to defeat the triplets. His face turned cold. Shwa. A silver hook appeared in Silver Flying Zhang's hand. The silver hook was covered with barbs and looked extremely dangerous. Emperor-level spiritual weapon. Silver Flying Zhang finally used his Emperor-level spiritual weapon. The triplets' faces changed slightly. A shield appeared in their hands at the same time. 3 shields that were exactly the same. Furthermore, they were all spirit weapons at the Emperor level. Shwa. Whoosh. The silver hook in Silver Flying Zhang's hand swept towards the triplets, but one of them blocked in front of him with a shield. Clang. The silver hook swept across the shield, but the shield didn't move an inch. Clang. Clang. The silver hook in Silver Flying Zhang's hand swept out like lightning, instantly sweeping out hundreds of ripples. Even the space had a slight ripple. One should know that this was the Yuan continent, where the space was extremely stable. It was extremely difficult to break open the space. The fact that a ripple appeared in the space showed how terrifying the power was. However, as the silver hooks continued to sweep the shields, the triplets remained as steady as Mount Tai, unable to move them at all. In the end, Silver Flying Octopus used bloodline fusion but was still unable to break through the defense of the triplets. These 3 brothers are interesting. Lu Ming smiled. Done. At this moment, a cold voice rang out, causing Silver Flying Zhang's heart to tremble. He retracted his bloodline and turned back into his human form with an ugly expression. The one who spoke was Yin Feng. What a piece of trash. You can't even take care of a few ants from a barbaric island. Yin Feng placed his hands behind his back and took a step forward, berating coldly. Silver Flying Zhang's expression changed drastically as he glared at the triplets. He lowered his head and retreated to the side, not even daring to let out a fart. Are you going to surrender and sign the blood oath contract obediently, or do you want me to do it personally? Yin Feng looked at the triplets. The three of us will not sign the contract. We will not be manipulated by others. At most we will die. One of the triplets said while the other two nodded their heads. Since you want to die, I shall grant your wish. Yin Feng's expression turned cold. His body emitted a layer of silver radiance as his muscles bulged slightly. At the same time, a layer of silver territory spread out. Boom! Yin Feng suddenly attacked. His fist glowed with silver radiance as he threw a punch towards the triplets. In the air there was a dull explosion. Block it! One of the triplets shouted. Dong! Yin Feng's silver fist landed on the shield, causing it to vibrate violently. The triplets had a drastic change in expression as they retreated continuously. The three of them retreated over a dozen steps before they could stabilize themselves. So strong. The crowd looked at Yin Feng in shock and disbelief. The strength that Silver Flying Octopus had displayed was already strong enough. Ordinary geniuses of the same level could not even take a single blow from him. However, the triplets were able to withstand Silver Flying Octopus's attack. But now, the triplets were forced to retreat over a dozen steps by Yin Feng's punch. This is a spiritual body? An innate spiritual body. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Yin Feng's physical body was actually a spiritual body. Yin Feng had not broken through to the Emperor realm and was only a martial saint. Therefore, his spiritual body could only be an innate spiritual body. Lu Ming thought of Di Xian from the Di clan. He also had an innate spiritual body and his combat strength was shocking. Moreover, once an innate spiritual body reached the martial emperor realm, it could transform and become stronger and more shocking. No wonder Yin Feng was so arrogant. It turned out that he had an innate spiritual body. Not bad. You are able to take a punch from me without being defeated. You should be proud of yourself for having such an achievement. However, I only used half of my strength just now. Let's see how many punches you can take. Yin Feng said coldly as he threw out another punch. Take it. One of the triplets roared, and a true dragon appeared above their heads. The three of them fused their bloodlines, and their shields grew larger and larger until they completely covered the true dragons. Dong! Yin Feng's punch landed on the shields once again. The shields vibrated violently and a terrifying sound wave was emitted. Some people's faces changed and they almost vomited blood. Bang! Bang! The triplets were forced to retreat. Their dragon claws stepped on the ground and created huge holes in the ice. If this had happened in the continent of God, the ground within a radius of 10,000 miles would have been blown apart. The true dragons formed by the triplets trembled and almost exploded. Yin Feng's face turned cold when he failed to take down the triplets with 2 punches. He felt that his dignity was being challenged. It's my turn. He roared as a pair of silver gloves appeared on his hands. There was no doubt that the silver gloves were an emperor's spiritual weapon. Yin Feng threw out another punch while wearing the emperor's spiritual weapon. This time the triplets could not take it anymore. Their shields were sent flying and their bloodlines scattered. They reverted to their true forms and were sent flying. They crashed into the walls of the valley and vomited mouthfuls of blood. You should be proud of yourself for being able to take 3 punches from me. I'll give you a chance and let you sign last. Yin Feng said indifferently with his hands behind his back. He then looked at Yin Fei Zhang and scolded, Why aren't you signing? Yes. Chapter 1405. That person had no choice but to sign it. Then a few more people signed the blood oath contract. Silver Flying Zhang took the blood oath contract and came before Qiu Yingying and Qiu Haoshan. He shouted, Sign it. I won't sign it. Qiu Yingying bit her lips and said, What? Silver Flying Zhang's face turned cold. Yin Feng's face also turned cold as killing intent flashed in his eyes. He had personally shown his strength and there was still someone who refused to sign it? They were completely ignoring him. Do you know the consequences if you don't sign it? Silver Flying Zhang said coldly. The great emperor's mystic realm must be filled with danger. You want us to sign the contract so that we will be at your disposal in the great emperor's mystic realm. At that time we will be your pawns. You want us to go first and reap the benefits? Qiu Yingying said loudly. Her words made many people's faces change. It was true. If Yin Feng and the others were to go first when they encountered danger in the great emperor's mystic realm, they would be in deep trouble. They might not even be able to keep their lives, let alone the opportunity. Some of the people who had signed the contract turned pale. What did you say? You're courting death. Silver Flying Zhang roared. They had originally planned to find some scapegoats to work for them in the great emperor's mystic realm. They did not expect Qiu Yingying to expose them. Although you are strong, we have so many people here. If we work together, why would we be afraid of you? Also, the seniors of the Divine Dragon Valley have crossed a great distance to summon us. Now that we have yet to enter the great emperor's mystic realm, I don't believe that you can do anything to us. Qiu Yingying said loudly. Qiu Yingying's words made Yin Feng, Silver Flying Zhang and the others' faces turn ugly. Bitch, don't think that I won't dare to touch you. You're just an ant. Even if I kill you, what can I do? Silver Flying Zhang shouted angrily as he threw a palm at Qiu Yingying. Qiu Yingying's face changed and she quickly retreated. But Silver Flying Zhang's speed was extremely fast. He was like a bolt of green lightning as he flew towards Qiu Yingying. Little sister. Qiu Hao exclaimed. He wanted to help her, but it was too late. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Qiu Yingying and threw a punch. Bang! This figure's fist collided with Silver Flying Zhang's palm, causing Silver Flying Zhang to retreat a few steps. Lu Ming. Brother Lu. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao both exclaimed. The figure that suddenly appeared in front of Qiu Yingying was naturally Lu Ming. Previously, Lu Ming had not made a move, because there was no need for that. He didn't know anyone else at the scene, so why should he make a move? But now that Qiu Yingying was involved, Lu Ming had no choice but to intervene. Brat, you dare to attack me? Silver Flying Zhang stared coldly at Lu Ming. You dare? Who do you think you are? Why wouldn't I dare? Ridiculous. Lu Ming smiled. Hearing this, Silver Flying Zhang's expression froze. Then he revealed a ferocious killing intent and shouted, Die! The silver hook reappeared in his hand and swept towards Lu Ming. He decided to kill Lu Ming as an example to others. Scram! 9 dragon forces erupted as he activated the suppressing Hell Heaven skill and punched out. Boom! The terrifying fist force blasted out, causing an ear-piercing explosion that shook the void. Silver Flying Zhang's expression changed drastically. He felt a terrifying force rushing towards him with unstoppable force. His body shook violently as he was sent flying backwards. Bam! Silver Flying Zhang's body crashed into the ice wall. The sound of bones breaking resounded as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Hiss hiss hiss, gasps could be heard at the scene. Many people were dumbfounded as they looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had injured Silver Flying Zhang with a single punch. Silver Flying Zhang's combat strength was obvious to all. He had cultivated a domain martial technique and was far stronger than his peers. But now he couldn't even withstand a single blow from Lu Ming. The contrast was too great. It turned out that there was such a powerful person among them. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao were also dumbfounded. No wonder he has awakened the 9 dragons' bloodline. Qiu Yingying's beautiful eyes flashed. Ah, brat, I'm going to kill you. Silver Flying Zhang roared as he struggled to get up. Whoosh! But a figure flashed and Lu Ming appeared in front of Silver Flying Zhang. He grabbed Silver Flying Zhang's throat and slammed him heavily against the ice wall. Boom! The ice wall let out a violent explosion. Silver Flying Zhang was like a toad that was hit by a brick. He let out a strange cry as blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. What are you screaming for? Do you really think you're strong? You keep calling others trash and ants. In my eyes, you're the ant. Lu Ming said indifferently. The silver flying octopus struggled desperately in Lu Ming's hands. However, it was as helpless as a weak chick. Do you think you're superior? You're just a native of Yuanlu and have cultivated a domain martial technique. Apart from domain martial technique, who here is weaker than you? Lu Ming continued. This made many people clench their fists. Their confidence, which had been shaken, was restored. Yes, Silver Flying Zhang had only cultivated a domain martial technique. His talent might not be better than theirs. In the future, if they also cultivated a domain martial technique, how could they be weaker than Silver Flying Zhang? They just had the upper hand for now. These people were originally the top geniuses of their respective continents. They had strong minds and quickly regained their confidence. Let him go. At this moment, a cold voice sounded behind Lu Ming. Was Yin Feng. At this moment, a layer of silver light appeared on Yin Feng's body. Even his eyes were shining with silver light. A bone-piercing killing intent was emitted from his body. Lu Ming held Silver Flying Zhang's neck and turned to look at Yin Feng with a faint smile. You have guts and your combat strength is not bad. However, you dare to be so arrogant when you come to Dragon God Valley. The consequences will be tragic. Yin Feng said coldly. He looked at Lu Ming as if he was looking at a dead man. Arrogant? Hehe, according to what you mean, I can't even resist when you bully me. Once I resist, it's called arrogance. Is this the logic of a pig? Lu Ming sneered. Yin Feng's face became even colder. His killing intent was bone-piercing. From the moment you said those words, you're dead. No one can save you. Is that so? Since I started cultivating, I don't know how many people have said those words to me. However, in the end they all became dead fish. I hope you won't be the next one. Lu Ming sneered. Don't compare me with those ants you met. Yin Feng said. Hehe, in my eyes you're not even comparable to an ant. Also, there's no need to keep this blood oath contract. Lu Ming threw Silver Flying Zhang far away and took the blood oath contract in his hand. You dare? Yin Feng shouted. I'm so scared. Chapter 1406. You're courting death. Yin Feng roared. His entire body seemed to have turned into a ball of silver light as he charged towards Lu Ming. Boom. He threw out a punch and a silver fist force blasted towards Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming, watch out. Chiu Yingying called out worriedly from behind. Lu Ming smiled and threw out a punch. Bang. The two fists collided and it was like a thunderclap. The entire valley resounded with a violent roar. A figure retreated continuously. Every step he took on the ground would create a huge pit. It was Yin Feng. The person who retreated was Yin Feng. Kill? Yin Feng was pushed back by a single move. He roared into the sky, and his body was covered with silver light as if he had turned into a silver person. The power of his domain and spiritual body were pushed to the extreme. He put on the pair of Emperor's spiritual weapon gloves again and threw a punch at Lu Ming. So strong. The power of this punch made the others turn pale with fright. They were greatly shaken. Yin Feng was too strong. They felt that if they were in Yin Feng's place, not even their bones would be left behind when facing this punch. He's really strong. This was Lu Ming's thought. Lu Ming felt that Yin Feng was stronger than Di Xian, whom he had met previously. But what did Lu Ming have to fear? The embryonic form of the chaotic domain covered his fist. He threw out a punch and the faint shadow of the prison-suppressing steel flashed on his fist. Boom. The two fists collided for the second time. The place where the two stood exploded with a dazzling light. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the two. Who would win in the end? Bang. The light exploded and a figure was sent flying far away, crashing into the ice wall of the valley. It's Yin Feng. It's him. He lost. There was an uproar at the scene. How is this possible? How is this possible? On the side, the other young man who came with Yin Feng and Yin Fei Zhang all widened their eyes in disbelief. They felt that they were dreaming and could not believe it. Yin Feng was a famous sky pride of the Divine Dragon Valley. He was born with a spiritual body and his combat power was unparalleled. There were not many who could match him at the same level. But now they were being defeated by people from a mere uncivilized island. Furthermore, it was a crushing defeat. How could someone from a savage island be so strong? Kill. I'm going to rip you apart. Yin Feng went completely crazy. A silver dragon appeared above his head. Yin Feng used bloodline fusion and turned into a silver dragon, crazily pouncing towards Lu Ming. Is going crazy useful? Lu Ming sneered. He soared into the sky and punched out continuously. Boom. Boom. The embryonic form of the primal chaos domain weighed hundreds of millions of kilograms as it slammed into the silver true dragon. The silver dragon roared and coiled in the sky. However, after a few moves, the silver dragon's body began to tremble. Cracks began to appear on its body, and it suddenly exploded. Within the silver light, Yin Feng's body appeared. 9 dragons stomping the heavens. Lu Ming looked down from above and took 9 steps in a row. All 9 steps landed on Yin Feng's face, leaving 9 shoe prints. Yin Feng's body fell heavily on the ground and he spat out a mouthful of blood. You who are high and mighty, have your face stepped on by the ant that you speak of. I wonder how you feel. Lu Ming said coldly. Hearing this, Yin Feng's chest tightened and he spat out another mouthful of blood. His aura was extremely weak. Anger. Yin Feng's entire being seemed to be burning with anger. He was filled with crazy killing intent. He had actually been stepped on by an ant. If this matter were to spread out, he would definitely become the laughing stock of the Dragon God Valley, and be ridiculed by his competitors. All of this was because of Lu Ming. He could not wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. Now get out of my sight. Lu Ming said coldly. If this wasn't the Divine Dragon Valley, he would not have let Yin Feng leave. He would have killed all of them. However, this was the Divine Dragon Valley and Lu Ming had just arrived. Moreover, Yin Feng's background was definitely not simple. If Lu Ming killed Yin Feng in front of everyone, he would definitely face revenge and be in danger. Therefore Lu Ming let Yin Feng leave. Bastard, just you wait, just you wait. Yin Feng left behind some harsh words and retreated with Yin Feizhang and the others in a sorry state. Lu Ming, I'm afraid that Yin Feng will take revenge on you for offending him like this. Qiu Yingying walked over and said worriedly. Don't worry, I didn't kill Yin Feng. I only injured him. It's a competition between peers. Those seniors will not lower themselves to take action. If they want to take revenge, it will only be between peers. As long as I'm careful, it should be fine. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Haha, it's finally fine. The blood oath has been torn apart. Not far away, laughter could be heard. Those who had signed the blood oath were ecstatic. Because the blood oath had been torn apart by Lu Ming, the blood oath was naturally useless. However, when they looked at Lu Ming, fear flashed in their eyes. No one came over to thank him. They thought of Yin Feng. Lu Ming had offended Yin Feng and Yin Feng would definitely take revenge. If they were too close to Lu Ming, they might be implicated. Their eyes flickered and they chose to stay away from Lu Ming and return to their cave dwellings. These people are really ungrateful, Qiu Yingying said hatefully. Lu Ming smiled and did not mind. This was human nature. Just now, Lu Ming had helped them and prevented them from being enslaved by Yin Feng. Perhaps he might even save their lives in the great emperor's secret realm. However, these people ignored all of this. Compared to the possibility of Yin Feng's revenge, they ignored Lu Ming's kindness and chose to stay away from Lu Ming. Sometimes humans were just that realistic. Brother, thank you for your help. At this moment, the triplet brothers walked over. One of them thanked Lu Ming. The other two cupped their fists. You're welcome. How should I address the three of you? Lu Ming smiled. The triplet brothers' unyielding character made Lu Ming admire them. I'm the eldest brother, Ruan Tian. He's the second brother, Ruan Di, and the younger brother, Ruan Ren. The two of them can't speak. Ruan Tian introduced. Can't speak. Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and Qiu Hao were stunned. It was rare for martial arts experts to not know how to speak. This was because martial arts experts had strong physical bodies and incredible control over their bodies. The chronic ailments of mortals were no problem for martial arts experts. Therefore, being mute was unbelievable for martial arts experts. The few of them chatted for a while before returning to their cave dwellings. The Ruan brothers needed to go back and treat their injuries. As for Lu Ming, he returned to his cave dwelling and continued to cultivate. Now, the embryonic form of the chaotic domain was getting closer and closer to its limit. Lu Ming believed that he would be able to cultivate it to its limit before entering the great emperor's secret realm. Chapter 1407. In the vast snow mountain, Long Yuanshan was standing respectfully in front of an old man in a cave. Yuanshan, did you really meet a genius in the Divine Ruins Continent group who obtained the Primordial Chaos token? The old man asked. Yes, Master. I wanted to report to you as soon as I came back, but Master has been in seclusion, so I waited until now to report to you. Long Yuanshan said respectfully. Well, to be able to obtain the Primordial Chaos token in such a remote place, it's really not bad. My Divine Dragon Valley only has one Primordial Chaos token. The old man smiled gently. Not only that, Master, that little guy awakened the bloodline of the 9 dragons. Long Yuanshan said. Oh. The old man raised his eyebrows and was a little surprised. Master, that little guy is called Lu Ming. I have also inquired about him in the Divine Ruins Continent group. He is a righteous person and has a good character. Does Master want to accept him as a disciple? Long Yuanshan said. There's no hurry. Apprenticeship still depends on fate. It can't be forced. Everything depends on fate. The old man smiled. Yes, Master. Long Yuanshan bowed. Well, Yuanshan, you didn't tell anyone about Lu Ming obtaining the Primordial Chaos token, right? The old man asked. No, only Master knows about it in the Divine Dragon Valley. Long Yuanshan said. Well then don't spread it out. His cultivation is still low. If it is spread out, he will be in trouble. The old man instructed. Long Yuanshan nodded. Long Yuanshan, you also have to cultivate well and try to break through to the Saint Realm. If you don't enter the Saint Realm, it will be difficult to reach the top. The old man's tone changed. Thank you for your advice, Master. I will work harder and break through to the Saint Realm. Long Yuanshan nodded. Well, go. The old man waved his hand. The following days were very peaceful. Yin Feng did not come to find trouble. Lu Ming was happy to be idle and cultivate in peace. A few months passed in the blink of an eye. The day of entering the great emperor's secret realm had arrived. After a few months of cultivation, Lu Ming's embryonic form of chaos domain had been cultivated to the maximum 2 months ago. Over this period of time, he had been polishing his foundation so that his cultivation could reach a state of perfection. As for the other geniuses, they had made great progress. The cultivation environment here was simply too good. Their cultivation speed was extremely fast, and most of them had already stepped into the realm of utmost exalted. Only a small number of them remained at the perfected spirit god realm. Dong, dong, dong. On this day the drum was sounded once again. Everyone walked out of the cave. Long Yuanchuan was waiting for them. All right, the martial emperor's mystic ground is about to open. Your trial and your opportunity has arrived. Now follow me. After he finished speaking, Long Yuanchuan stepped into the air and left. Everyone followed. They flew out of the huge valley and arrived at a huge square. There were already many people waiting in the square. There were over 1,000 people gathered together. At a glance they were all young people. Furthermore, the majority of them were utmost exalted level cultivators. They are the same as you. They are disciples that the Dragon God Valley recruited from various continents. They will also enter the great Emperor Mystic Realm together. Long Yuanchuan said as he landed on the plaza. So many people? Everyone was shocked. At a glance there were at least 10,000 people in groups. Moreover, more and more people were arriving. These were the top geniuses of various continents. The Dragon God Valley had recruited so many people. However, when Lu Ming thought of the map of the entire Yuan realm, he was relieved. Outside the Yuan continent, in the vast and boundless ocean, there were too many continents like the divine desolate continent. They were endless. Recruiting tens of thousands of top geniuses was not a problem at all. It was just a drop in the ocean. People continued to fly over. In the end there were about 20,000 people. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a large number of figures flew over from the vast snowy mountains. There were a few thousand of them. They were all young people and all of them were utmost exalted. However, these people did not land with Lu Ming and the rest. Instead, they landed at the top of the plaza. As soon as they landed, they looked at Lu Ming and the rest with various gazes. Some were curious, some were disdainful, some were arrogant, and some were despising. There were all kinds of gazes. Yin Feng. Lu Ming looked around and saw Yin Feng among the group of people. Lu Ming understood that the thousands of people who came later were the local geniuses of the Dragon God Valley. Yin Feng, I heard that you were defeated by a country bumpkin from a barbaric island a few months ago. You even stepped on his face 9 times. Is that true? A young man in a red robe walked towards Yin Feng and asked with a sneer. Chiku, I don't need you to care about my business. Yin Feng said with a cold face. You don't need me to care? Ah, Yin Feng, you are really useless. You can't even beat a country bumpkin from a barbaric island, and you were even stepped on 9 times. How embarrassing. It's fine if you are embarrassing yourself, but you even embarrassed the local geniuses of the Dragon God Valley. Why don't I care? Chiku, the young man in the red robe, mocked. The others on the side also sneered. Damn it. Yin Feng gritted his teeth and a murderous look appeared on his face. It's all Lu Ming's fault. That country bumpkin. If it weren't for him, he wouldn't have been mocked by Chiku. He had been mocked a lot in the past few months. He couldn't wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. That bastard, I must kill him. Yin Feng roared in his heart. His gaze swept through the crowd and landed on Lu Ming. Lu Ming seemed to have sensed Yin Feng's gaze and looked at him with a disdainful smile. Buzz. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in the sky above the square. Lu Ming didn't know how this old man appeared. It was as if he had been standing there before. The old man was burly and had a long beard. He looked very ordinary, like an ordinary person. However, he attracted everyone's attention just by standing there casually. They couldn't look away. It was as if this old man was the entire world. This aura, Lu Ming's pupils shrank rapidly. This old man's aura was very familiar. He thought of the heavenly profound saint. Their auras were very similar. A saint. Lu Ming was certain that this was a martial sage level powerhouse. This was the first time Lu Ming had seen a living martial saint. Lu Ming couldn't help but release his spiritual consciousness. However, his body trembled in the next moment and he quickly retracted his spiritual consciousness. When he hurriedly scanned with his spiritual sense, he seemed to see a world appear in front of him. A terrifying pressure acted on his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he withdrew his spiritual sense quickly and that the other party didn't have any hostility, His soul would have been injured just now. Too powerful. Is this the existence of the Martial Saint realm? I'm afraid that if he wants to kill me, he can kill me with just a breath. Chapter 1408. Above the Martial Emperor was the Martial Sage. The Martial Sage was also known as the Sage, etc. A sage was unbelievably powerful. With just a thought, they could overturn rivers and seas. Compared to the Martial Emperor, they were much stronger. They were on a completely different level. Furthermore, the Martial Sage realm was different from the other realms. After the Meridian Opening realm, there were a total of 9 realms from the Martial Warrior realm to the Martial Emperor realm. Each realm was divided into 9 levels. However, the Martial Sage realm was completely different. The Martial Sage realm was divided into 3 realms: the Bright Sage realm, the Great Sage realm, and the Absolute Sage realm. Each realm was divided into 4 levels: Small Success, Great Success, Peak, and Complete realm. The gap between each realm was huge. The 3 realms were collectively known as the Martial Sage realm. Above it was the Martial Emperor realm, also known as the Great Emperor. It was said that the Martial Emperor realm was different from the Martial Sage realm. They wondered which realm the old man in front of them was at. Just. The moment the old man appeared, Long Yuanchuan and the rest flew up into the sky. There were a total of 20 of them, and they greeted the old man. "Greetings, Elder Hong." The burly old man nodded his head and waved his hand. Long Yuanchuan and the rest stood behind him respectfully. Following which, Elder Hong's gaze swept across the crowd. Everyone felt a formless pressure pressing down on them. They immediately stood up straight, their expressions solemn. Even the local youths were all incomparably arrogant, but in front of Elder Hong's gaze, they all stood obediently and respectfully. "I believe everyone already knows the objective of this trip." Elder Hong spoke. His voice was loud and clear, and it rang in everyone's ears. "Here I would like to emphasize a few points. Firstly, we are entering the Great Emperor's secret realm, and the Great Emperor is Emperor Tsang," Elder Hong announced once again. Many people were shocked. "What? It's Emperor Tsang? I thought it was a secret realm left behind by a great emperor. I never expected it to be Emperor Tsang." At the scene there was a lot of discussion, and the loudest ones were the local youths. That was because Emperor Tsang was too famous. Regardless of whether it was the Divine Dragon Valley or the Divine Sect, they were all located in Tsang State. As the name suggested, the Tsang State's name came from Emperor Tsang. 60,000 years ago, the Tsang Emperor was the ruler of the Tsang Province, the only great emperor of the Tsang Province. But 60,000 years ago, Emperor Tsang suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was said that Emperor Tsang had already fallen. As for how he died, no one knew. With the disappearance of the Tsang Emperor, there was no longer a great emperor in the Tsang State. And this time the great emperor mystic realm was actually Emperor Tsang's. This was beyond everyone's expectations. This time, entering the Tsang Emperor's secret territory is not only a test, but also an opportunity for you. When you come out of the secret territory, you will become an official disciple of the Dragon God Valley. Also, the treasures you obtained in the secret territory, you can use them yourself. If you need them, you can keep them. The sect will not force you to hand them over. If you don't think it's useful, or if you have some high-level treasures or secret techniques, you can hand them over to the sect. The sect will compensate you with origin stones or treasures of equivalent value. Elder Hong's words caused the hearts of the crowd to turn fiery. The Dragon God Valley will not force you to hand over the treasures in the Great Emperor's secret territory. If you're willing to hand them over, then hand them over. The sect will also compensate you accordingly. This condition was too generous. It was shocking. What you get is yours. Lu Ming was secretly impressed. This was also a strategy of the Dragon God Valley. In this way, everyone would do their best to search for treasures because what you get is yours. If the Dragon God Valley gave the order to hand over all the treasures they obtained, who would risk their lives to search for treasures? At most, they would find a place to hide and pass the test when they come out. Anyway, these youths would become disciples of the Dragon God Valley in the future. The more treasures they obtained, the more benefits they would gain in the future. The second point. Elder Hong's voice sounded again. The crowd quietened down. The second point, this time, the 13 top sects in the Tsang province will send a large number of disciples in. The competition will definitely be intense. Therefore, the disciples of the Dragon God Valley must be united against the outsiders. Do you understand? Yes, Elder. Everyone replied loudly. All right, then follow me and depart. Elder Hong waved his hand and a battleship appeared in the sky. The moment it appeared, it expanded rapidly and became 100 miles long. Everyone flew onto the battleship. Although there were more than 20,000 people, it was still very spacious on a 100-miles-long battleship. "Let's go," Elder Hong shouted. The battleship broke through the sky and disappeared into the horizon. In the Yuan continent, due to the stability of the space, it was much more difficult to teleport. It wasn't that there weren't any teleportation arrays, but the price to pay was very high. Therefore, most people would use some external objects to travel, such as various large and small battleships and puppets. Elder Hong's battleship belonged to the large battleship category. The battleship broke through the sky at an astonishing speed. Moreover, as long as the origin stone was activated, it could continue flying without rest. A few days later, the battleship stopped above a desolate mountain range. Everyone came out of the battleship and stood in the sky. Elder Hong waved his hand and kept the battleship. Everyone looked around and realized that there were other people besides the Dragon God Valley. People from other sects had already arrived. It's the Heavenly Divinity Sect, and the Nine Heaven Sword Sect, and the Heavenly King Palace. The local youths could tell at a glance which faction those people belonged to. Out of the 13 top sects in the Tsang province, 5 or 6 had already arrived. The Heavenly God Sect. Lu Ming looked to the east. The Heavenly God Sect was in the east. There were tens of thousands of people there, twice the number of people compared to the Dragon God Valley. The Dragon God Valley had a higher requirement for bloodlines. They needed to awaken the bloodline of a true dragon or a scaled dragon. However, the Heavenly God Sect cultivated a lot of different bloodlines. Fortunately, Lu Ming's eyesight was good. He saw a few familiar faces among the tens of thousands of people in the Heavenly God Sect. Eden Ziwuji Bing Kong Ji Hongchen. However, he didn't see Xian Yanjuan. Lu Ming looked at the Heavenly God Sect. Many people from the Heavenly God Sect also looked at them. This time, Saintess Nianjuan told us that there are enemies in the Dragon God Valley and the Sky Universe Demon Sect. She asked us to help her take care of them. In the Heavenly God Sect, a young man with a flame mark between his eyebrows said, "Of course. Since the Saintess said so, we will take care of those ants." Another young man sneered. When the Saintess was mentioned, their eyes were filled with admiration and respect. The Saintess of the Heavenly God Sect, Xian Yanjuan, was definitely a legendary figure. Chapter 1409. Later on, Xian Yanjuan was conferred the title of Holy Maiden by the Heavenly God Sect. As she had broken through to the martial royal realm, she could not enter the Great Emperor Mystic Realm. Hence, she asked a few geniuses of the Heavenly God Sect to enter the Great Emperor Mystic Realm and help her get rid of a few strong enemies. How could they refuse to serve the Holy Maiden? Bing Kong Edian Ziwuji, you came from the same continent as the Holy Maiden. Who is the one that the Holy Maiden asked us to kill? The young man with the flame mark on his forehead looked at Bing Kong Edian Ziwuji and Ji Hongchen. The four of their faces changed slightly. Edian was silent. So was Ji Hongchen. "Senior brother Lu, it's that one." Bing Kong spoke and pointed at Lu Ming's position. "Oh, it's that kid." The young man with the flame mark on his forehead and a few other young men looked at Lu Ming. Ji Hongchen's face was filled with worry. "This kid is mine." The young man with the flame mark on his forehead said casually. "Lu Yin, that might not be the case. It's not that easy to win the Saintess' favor by yourself. That little brat can be killed with a wave of your hand. That will depend on our luck. Whoever meets him after entering the Great Emperor's mystic realm will be considered lucky." Another young man sneered. "Humph, let's see who's lucky." The young man with the flame mark on his forehead snorted. Lu Ming, who was in the Dragon God Valley, naturally saw Bing Kong pointing at him. However, Lu Ming did not care. It was fine if these people did not provoke him. If they wanted to die, he did not mind sending them on their way. In the distance, more large sects arrived. As time passed, more and more powerful forces and sects arrived. The number of people at the scene increased. After a few hours, a total of 13 sects and forces arrived. These 13 sects and forces were the 13 strongest forces in the Tsang state. Each force had more than 20,000 people. In total, there were more than 300,000 people. In other words, this time, there would be more than 300,000 people entering the Great Emperor Mystic Realm. That was a huge number. These people were top geniuses from various continents. Every major force was led by a Saint Realm expert. The 13 Saint Realm experts stood quietly in the air, not saying a word as they waited quietly. Soon, night fell and a moon appeared in the sky. Blood moon. This moon was actually blood red. A ray of blood red moonlight shone from the blood moon. At this moment, ripples appeared in the sky. Layers of wave-like ripples appeared. At this moment, the eyes of the 13 Saint Realm powerhouses suddenly lit up, and a shocking aura burst forth from their bodies. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 13 saints stepped forward and appeared in the space where the ripples had appeared. Attention, we are now opening the entrance to the great Emperor Mystic Realm. A Saint Realm expert spoke. The auras of the 13 Saint Realm experts surged, as if 13 different worlds had appeared. At the same time, the 13 people attacked at the same time. 13 different colored lights flew forward and gathered together. Open. At first it was blurry, but slowly, it became clearer and clearer. That is, Lu Ming's pupils constricted. What appeared in the void was a tomb, a huge tomb. It was extremely huge, even bigger than a mountain range. It was at least 100,000 feet tall. Countless people were surprised. Was this the great Emperor Mystic Realm? Or was this the tomb of a great emperor? Was the great Emperor Mystic Realm the tomb of a great emperor? Rumble. With a final rumble, the huge tomb appeared in the sky, as tall as the sky. Lu Ming had never seen such a majestic tomb before. Rumble. When the great necropolis appeared, the enormous tombstone in front of it began to move. Some of the more cowardly people sucked in a breath of cold air and involuntarily took a few steps back. The tombstone moved and finally opened completely, revealing a pitch-black space inside. It was extremely terrifying. This can't be the entrance to the great Emperor Mystic Realm, right? Someone spoke, his voice trembling. If it was an ordinary tomb, no one would be afraid. However, this involved a great emperor, and it was a little terrifying. That's right, this is the entrance. Hurry up and enter. If you are late, the tombstone will close. A sage realm expert said. Really? Some people's hearts skipped a beat. Haha, isn't it just a tomb? What a coward. Someone laughed loudly and took the lead to fly over. Whoosh, whoosh. Then more and more people flew in. Let's go. More than 20,000 people from the Divine Dragon Valley also flew towards the entrance of the tomb. Lu Ming followed the crowd and flew in. The entrance of the tomb was huge and it could accommodate many people at the same time. Soon everyone flew into the tomb. Rumble. When everyone flew into the tombstone rumbled and closed automatically. It was pitch black inside the tomb and they couldn't even see their own fingers. Even if everyone's cultivation was high, they could still see in the dark. However, they couldn't see anything here. In the next moment, someone condensed a flame, and there was a trace of dim light in the tomb. A ball of flame also appeared in Lu Ming's hand, and he could barely see a few dozen meters around him. Brother Lu. Qiu Yingying's voice was heard as she walked towards Lu Ming. Qiu Hao was beside Qiu Yingying. Lady Qiu, Brother Qiu. Lu Ming greeted the two of them. Heavenly King Palace, gather here. Heavenly God Sect, gather here. Divine Dragon Valley, gather here. Voices could be heard in the darkness, as the disciples of the 13 factions began to gather. In such an environment they would only feel safe if they gathered together. Lu Ming and the other two also gathered in the direction of Divine Dragon Valley. There seems to be a lot of forks. Qiu Yingying looked around. At this moment, many people had condensed flames, holy light and the like. Countless lights lit up the space like stars in the night sky. They found themselves in a huge stone chamber. This stone chamber was extremely huge, and it could easily accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. There were many large passages around the stone chamber. There were no signs at the entrance of the passages, and no one knew where these passages led to. Heavenly King Palace disciples, let's go this way. Heavenly God Sect disciples, this way. In the end, the 13 forces each chose a passage. Those from the Divine Dragon Valley chose a passage on the left and walked forward carefully. The passage was huge and it wasn't crowded at all, with tens of thousands of people walking together. Chapter 14:10. Soon they had traveled more than 100 miles. However, the tunnel seemed to have no end. It was shockingly long and they had not reached the end yet. The walls here seemed to be covered with inscriptions. Qiu Yingying whispered. Lu Ming glanced around. Indeed, the walls here were covered with inscriptions. The structure of the inscriptions was strange, and the combination was very strange. It looked very strange. Moreover, there was nothing strange about the inscriptions. They seemed to have lost their spirituality after a long time. Brother Lu, be careful. Qiu Yingying suddenly exclaimed. At this moment, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, he moved a few meters to the side. Whoosh! A wisp of strange black thorns pierced the spot where Lu Ming was standing earlier. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then another black thorn stabbed toward Lu Ming. Not only that, but it also stabbed toward Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. Watch out! Lu Ming's figure flashed continuously, avoiding the attack of the black thorn. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao also flashed and avoided the attack. However, they seemed to be in a sorry state. Despicable. It's Yin Feng. Chiu Yingying stared ahead angrily. Lu Ming saw Yin Feng standing under the wall. His palm was on the wall and there was a flash of light. The black thorn had shot out from the wall where Yin Feng's palm was. Yin Feng had used a special method to activate the inscriptions on the wall to attack them. Hee hee, you're lucky. Yin Feng sneered. His body flashed and he disappeared into the darkness in front of the tunnel. Despicable. Before the Saint Realm elders came in, they told us to be united, but Yin Feng secretly tried to kill us. Chiu Yingying gritted her teeth. Despicable. Chiu Hao also said with hatred. They had been in danger just now. They felt that the strange black thorn was extremely terrifying. If it had hit them, they would have died. Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly, but he did not say anything. After that, they became more careful and continued to move forward. After about 100 miles, light gradually appeared in front of them. It was no longer pitch black. The pressure in their hearts finally lightened. After walking for a while longer, everyone came to a halt. There was an abyss in front of them. The abyss had blocked their path. Above the abyss, there were 10 bridges leading to the other side of the abyss. However, in front of the abyss, there was a stone tablet with 4 words written on it. 9 deaths, 1 life. 10 bridges meant 9 deaths and 1 life. What did he mean? Did that mean that out of the 10 bridges, 9 led to dead ends and 1 led to life? But how could he pass this? Which one was the way out? What should we do? Someone said. Isn't that simple? Find 10 people and test it out. Within the crowd, a cold voice sounded out. It was Yin Feng. Everyone was shocked. Finding 10 people to try this method was very simple. However, 9 out of 10 of them would lead to death. Those who tried this method would only have a slim chance of surviving. Who would be willing to try? Going there would be suicide. Isn't that simple? You get up. Yin Feng pointed his finger and selected 10 people. Among them were Lu Ming, Chiu Yingying, Chiu Hao, and the triplets of the Ruan family. Why should I go up and try? Impossible. If you want to go, then go. One of the people who was pointed out shouted. What are you shouting for? Lowly ants from a barbaric island. Our divine dragon valley has traversed a great distance to summon you here, allowing you to enter the great emperor's mystic realm to obtain supreme opportunities. Are you not going to do anything? Now it's time for you to do something. Yin Feng sneered. That's right. Go up quickly. With your strength, this is all you can do. Otherwise, why are you here? To eat and drink for free? Beside Yin Feng, another youth sneered. No, I'm not going. That youth shouted and shook his head. You're courting death. Yin Feng's eyes turned cold. His figure suddenly appeared beside that youth and punched out. Bang. That youth's body flew far away as he vomited blood. His aura was extremely weak. If you're not going, I'll kill you now. Yin Feng's eyes were as cold as lightning as he swept his gaze towards Lu Ming and the rest. Idiot. Lu Ming curled his lips. Lu Ming did not lower his voice and his voice spread far away. What did you say? Yin Feng glared at Lu Ming. Not only are you an idiot, even your hearing is bad. Lu Ming glanced at Yin Feng in disdain. Kid, it's time for you to contribute to the Divine Dragon Valley. Go up and scout. Do you want so many people to wait for you? If the other sects were to gain the upper hand, would you be able to bear the responsibility? Yin Feng shouted. The other local youths sneered as they watched. The other youths from the other continents looked on coldly. To them it was best if Lu Ming went up. At least they would not have to take the risk. If Lu Ming did not go, what if Yin Feng found them? Since you want to contribute to the Divine Dragon Valley, why don't you go up yourself? Wouldn't it be more efficient? Lu Ming said faintly. Who do you think you are? Can your life be compared to mine? Yin Feng shouted coldly. Yin Feng, why are you wasting time with him? If you don't want to go up, just throw him up. The youth beside Yin Feng said coldly. At the same time he strode towards Lu Ming. Kid, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Do you want to go up yourself or do you want me to throw you over? The youth was wearing a purple robe and his face was cold. He reached out his hand and grabbed at Lu Ming. Throw him over, I think that's a good idea. Lu Ming sneered. The fledgling chaotic domain covered his body and he threw a punch at the youth. Boom. The purple-robed young man's body shook violently and he spurted blood from his mouth. Just as he was about to be sent flying by Lu Ming took a step forward and slapped the purple-robed young man's face. Pah. The crisp sound of a slap resounded as the youth's body landed heavily on the ground. The sound of bones breaking could be heard from his body. No one knew what the ground was made of, but it was unbelievably hard. It was impossible to damage it. The youth laid on the ground and wailed like a dying dog. Kid, how dare you? Impudent, how dare you hurt someone? You're just an ant from the desolate land, you're courting death. Everyone was shocked when Lu Ming beat up the purple-robed young man until he was half dead. Subsequently, more than 10 local youths shouted one by one, exuding a cold, murderous intent. Their figures flashed and they surrounded Lu Ming. In their eyes, an ant from a desolate island dared to attack them. He was courting death. It seems that there are enough people to test the 10 bridges. Lu Ming sneered. What did you say? What shameless boasting. Die. A youth shouted and charged at Lu Ming. The next moment, bang. Lu Ming's fist landed on his dantian. He let out a shrill scream and lay on the ground, unable to move. Shio. 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 Chapter 14:11. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Lu Ming was so strong. Those youths were the local elites of the Divine Dragon Valley. All of them had cultivated realm martial techniques and their combat abilities were powerful, far surpassing those of the geniuses from overseas. However, these people were powerless in the hands of Lu Ming. They were easily defeated by Lu Ming. Most of the youths were dumbfounded. A small number of people revealed serious expressions. Yin Feng. After taking care of the youths, Lu Ming looked at Yin Feng. Whoosh. With a move of his body, Lu Ming walked toward Yin Feng. Enough. A cold voice was heard. A young man with a cold expression appeared beside Yin Feng and looked at Lu Ming coldly. Enough? Who do you think you are? Get lost. Lu Ming shouted. The youth's eyes darkened and he said, You are from the same sect. I don't think there is a need for you to stay in the Dragon God Valley. Now you have no share in this secret realm. Go back. Get lost. Lu Ming's reply was even simpler this time. He only had one word. You are courting death. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are strong. I will show you what true strength is. The youth said coldly and the roar of a dragon came from his body. Brr. Then the youth let out a roar that sounded like a dragon's roar. He bent his fingers like a claw and grabbed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming saw a real dragon grabbing at Lu Ming. Innate spiritual body. Lu Ming's heart stirred. As soon as this young man attacked, Lu Ming could sense that he was like Yin Feng. He also had an innate spirit body. Moreover, it was a special dragon body. Boom. When the youth attacked, a terrifying force came from behind Lu Ming. It was Yin Feng. He took the opportunity to sneak an attack on Lu Ming. You are courting death. Facing the encirclement, he did not panic in the slightest. His figure flashed as he dodged the claw in front of him. With a twist of his body, he sent a palm strike at Yin Feng. Yin Feng's expression changed. He did not expect Lu Ming to react so quickly. He wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. Bang! Lu Ming's palm struck his fist, causing his entire body to tremble as he staggered back. Lu Ming circulated his primal chaos domain and used the suppressing hell heavenly skill to attack Yin Feng. Let's attack together and kill this person. This person is lawless. Yin Feng roared. However, other than the young man from before, the others did not make a move. In the Dragon God Valley, the competition was very fierce. Many local disciples were competitors with Yin Feng, so they were happy to see him suffer. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming's fists were like a mountain as he continuously threw out a few punches. Yin Feng was barely able to block a few of them. After being punched in the stomach by Lu Ming, Yin Feng's eyeballs almost popped out as he vomited a large mouthful of blood. Slap. Lu Ming slapped Yin Feng's face. The terrifying force almost caused Yin Feng's head to explode. There was a loud bang in his head and he fell to the ground. How could this be? The young man who attacked Lu Ming earlier narrowed his eyes. Yin Feng's battle strength was about the same as his, but he was defeated by Lu Ming in a few moves. This caused him to be greatly shocked as he quickly retreated. Now, do you think you can retreat? Lu Ming said coldly as he circulated his wind origin technique and rushed towards the other party. The result was as expected. After a few moves, the other party ended up in the same state as Yin Feng. He was beaten into a dead dog lying weakly on the ground. Now, someone can scout the way, Lu Ming said softly. He carried Yin Feng and the young man and walked towards the edge of the abyss. Kid, what are you trying to do? The elders have warned us to be united. You injured your fellow disciples and now you want to harm your fellow disciples, going against the elders' orders. When we get out, I will report this to the sect. Yin Feng yelled. He was the one who wanted to deal with Lu Ming. Previously, in the tunnel, he activated the inscription and wanted to kill Lu Ming. Later on, he wanted Lu Ming to scout the way. He was the one who started everything. Now he was slandering Lu Ming for harming his fellow disciples. Lu Ming was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He grabbed the two of them and walked to the edge of the abyss. No, 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 I'm warning you, Yin Feng and the other young man almost peed in their pants. They roared crazily and struggled with all their might. However, Lu Ming had already sealed their cultivation with his true origin technique. No matter how they struggled, it was useless. Then Lu Ming threw the two of them out. They flew towards a different bridge. Didn't the two of them want to scout the way? Then let the two of them test it out. The two of them screamed crazily in the air. One of them was hoarse and the other was miserable. It was worse than a pig being slaughtered. Whoosh, whoosh. The two of them flew along the bridge and landed on the other side, falling to the ground. After falling, the two of them were still screaming. Are they okay? Everyone was stunned. The two of them were fine. Weren't they supposed to die? Logically speaking, there was only one way out. How could there be two? Let's try again. Lu Ming moved and grabbed a few young men who had been knocked down by him just now. He threw them along the other bridges while they were screaming. The few of them flew over one by one and nothing happened to them. Then Lu Ming tried the 10 bridges one by one. They were all fine. So it's just to scare people. It's fine at all. Let's go. The young men of Dragon God Valley cursed and rushed over the bridges. They were all fine. The 10 bridges were just to scare people. Lu Ming touched his nose. Why did it seem like a prank? Damn it, damn it. Yin Feng and the young man with the innate spirit body screamed crazily in their hearts. This time they had lost a lot of face. Just now, when the two of them were facing the threat of death, they screamed and yelled. They looked really pathetic. Moreover, they would not be able to raise their heads in front of so many people. They blamed all of this on Lu Ming. Seeing Lu Ming walk onto the bridge, the two of them were shocked. They hurriedly rushed into the passage ahead and disappeared without a trace. These guys are lucky, Lu Ming muttered. They were indeed lucky if they were still alive. Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and the others crossed the bridge and continued forward. This time they saw a door after walking for a while. They walked out of the door and arrived at a huge platform. People from other factions. Lu Ming looked around and found that the platform was very big and long. There were also doors on both sides of Lu Ming and the others, and disciples of other factions appeared. It turned out that there were many passages in the Great Tomb that led to this place. In front of the platform, there was a huge bubble-like object that was bobbing up and down. The shadows of mountains and rivers could be vaguely seen in the bubble. There was actually a world inside. Is that the real Great Emperor's mystic realm? It must be. This is a plane. It's normal for a Great Emperor's mystic realm to be in a plane. Let's go in. Someone flew up and rushed toward the bubble. Chapter 14:12. When they got close to the bubble, their bodies shrunk rapidly. When they got close to the bubble, they became the size of a speck of dust. Then they entered the bubble and disappeared. I'm fine. Many people saw that they were fine after entering the bubble. More people rushed towards the bubble. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One by one, the densely packed figures charged into the bubble before disappearing into it. Let's go too, Lu Ming said as he flew towards the bubble with Qiu Yingying and the others. When they flew towards the bubble, there was a strong gravitational force on the bubble that sucked them in. The closer they got to the bubble, the bigger the bubble in front of them became. Then their figures also entered the bubble and disappeared. On the platform, Yin Feng and a few others looked at Lu Ming's disappearing figure and their bodies emitted cold, murderous intent. Just you wait. I'll kill this person. The young man with the innate spiritual body let out a furious roar. Although Lu Ming's combat strength is strong now, when we reach the Great Emperor's secret realm and break through to the Martial Emperor realm, our combat strength will increase greatly. Moreover, our innate spiritual bodies will also transform. When that time comes, we'll kill him. Yin Feng gritted his teeth and said, That's right. What's the use of having a martial saint's combat strength? When we break through to the Martial Emperor realm, we'll make him die a horrible death. The person who spoke earlier gritted his teeth and said, Their cultivation had reached the peak of the Martial Saint realm and they could break through to the Martial Emperor realm at any time. Moreover, their identities were not ordinary. They had strong people behind them and were ready to break through to the Martial Emperor realm. They were 100% confident that they could break through to the Martial Emperor realm. Moreover, the innate spiritual bodies would transform when they broke through to the Martial Emperor realm. They would reach the level of an inferior earth spiritual body and their combat strength would increase greatly. They would be much stronger than ordinary spiritual bodies. When that time came, they were confident that they would make Lu Ming die a horrible death. Then the few of them flew towards the bubble and disappeared into it. When Lu Ming flew into the bubble, he felt the world spin. In the next moment he appeared high up in the sky. He quickly circulated his true essence to stabilize his body. Bus, bus, bus. Ripples appeared in the sky all around. Lu Ming scanned the area and discovered that there were many people in the void. There were more than 100 people in his line of sight, but he did not see Qiu Yingying and the rest. It seemed that after entering this secret realm, one would appear at random places. In the void, more than 100 people sized each other up. Among these 100 people, there were people from the 13 sections. It's that kid from Dragon God Valley? One of them looked at Lu Ming and his eyes lit up. This person was the youth with the flame mark on his forehead from the Heavenly Divine Sect. His name was Lu Yan. Senior brother Lu Yan, our luck is really good. A figure appeared beside Lu Yan. It was Bing Kong. Haha, my luck is really good. Those guys wanted to compete with me. Once I kill this guy, the Holy Maiden will definitely look at me in a new light. Lu Yan was overjoyed. She stepped forward and walked toward Lu Ming. Bing Kong followed. Lu Ming naturally noticed Bing Kong and Lu Yan. He stood quietly in the void with a calm face. Kid, you must be Lu Ming. It's your bad luck to meet me. Lu Yan sneered, and a cold murderous intent appeared on her body. You want to kill me? Because of him? Lu Ming asked, looking at Bing Kong. Lu Ming guessed that Bing Kong wanted to kill him. After all, when Yuan Lu sect was selecting disciples in the Divine Ruins Continent group, Bing Kong was badly beaten by him. Him? You guessed wrong. It's the Holy Maiden who wants to kill you. Haha, no one can save you today. Lu Yan sneered, and a powerful aura emanated from her body. Holy Maiden? Lu Ming frowned. The Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Divine Sect wanted to kill him? However, he had just arrived and did not know the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Divine Sect. Lu Ming, you would never have guessed that Xian Yinjuan has become the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Divine Sect and has been accepted as a direct disciple by the Great Elder of the Heavenly Divine Sect. Bing Kong said. Xian Yinjuan, the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Divine Sect? Lu Ming was surprised. He never expected that Xian Yinjuan would become the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Divine Sect. No wonder he did not see Xian Yinjuan among the disciples of the Heavenly Divine Sect. Speaking of Xian Yinjuan, Lu Ming could not help but think of Xian Yanqing. Previously, he did not see Xian Yanqing among the disciples of the Heavenly Universe Demon Sect. What was going on? Lu Ming was a little worried. He decided to find time to go to the Heavenly Universe Demon Sect to inquire about the situation after this matter was over. Yes, Lu Ming. Now, do you regret offending Holy Maiden Yinjuan? Bing Kong exuded a cold aura. Regret? What's there to regret? If she comes, I will still trample on her. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Arrogant, you're courting death. A cold light flashed in Lu Yan's eyes. Senior brother Lu Yan, this person has a grudge with me. Why don't you let me deal with him? Bing Kong said to Lu Yan. You want to snatch the credit from me? Lu Yan's face darkened. Senior brother, you misunderstood. How would I dare? As long as I cripple him, whether I kill him or not, I will let senior brother decide. The credit will naturally go to senior brother. This Lu Ming has a grudge with me in the past. If I don't avenge this grudge, I will not be at peace. Bing Kong hurriedly explained. I see. Then you can make your move. Lu Yan nodded and stood aside to watch with her hands behind her back. Clang. Bing Kong unsheathed his battle sword. An ice-cold long sword appeared in his hand. On his body, the embryonic form of the ice domain spread out and pressed towards Lu Ming. Do you think you are my opponent? Lu Ming said indifferently. Haha, Lu Ming, things are different now. You are ignorant. 2 years ago you stayed in the Godly Ruins continent. How can the cultivation environment in the Godly Ruins continent be compared to the Yuan continent? I came 2 years earlier than you and my cultivation has already reached the peak Supreme Being. How much progress can you make by staying in the Godly Ruins continent? Bing Kong sneered. Is this the reason why you are so confident? How pathetic. Lu Ming shook his head and an aura spread out from his body. The aura of a Supreme Being. Bing Kong's face changed. He did not expect that Lu Ming's cultivation had also reached the Supreme Being realm. It seems that you have made great progress in the past few months in the Yuan continent. Bing Kong said. He believed that Lu Ming had broken through to the Supreme Being realm in the past few months in the Yuan continent. Lu Ming smiled and did not bother to explain. But even if we are both Supreme Beings, you are still not my opponent. Jade Art Kill. Bing Kong suddenly moved and merged with his sword. A terrifying ice jade sword mark flew towards Lu Ming. Its power was shocking. So you have cultivated a domain martial technique. Lu Ming could tell at one glance that Bing Kong was using a kind of realm martial technique. No wonder Bing Kong was so confident. Boom. Lu Ming threw a punch at Bing Kong. Wherever Lu Ming's fist passed, Bing Kong's sword chi instantly collapsed. Chapter 14:13. Bing Kong felt an earth-shattering power surging towards him. This power wasn't something he could resist. He turned pale with fright. How could Lu Ming be so powerful? Boom. The terrifying power slammed into his body. He let out a miserable shriek as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew far away and crashed into a mountain peak in the distance. How is this possible? His eyes widened as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had always stayed in the Divine Ruins Continent Group. It was impossible for the Divine Ruins Continent Group to have a domain martial skill. How could Lu Ming's combat strength be so strong? Originally he was full of confidence. He had come to the Yuan continent 2 years earlier than Lu Ming and his cultivation had increased greatly. He had reached the peak of the Supreme Realm. Moreover, he was good at socializing. He got to know Lu Yan and the others and obtained a domain martial skill that was suitable for him. After he cultivated it, his combat strength had increased greatly, far surpassing Yi Dian and Zi Wuji. Initially, he wanted to suppress Lu Ming after meeting him this time to take revenge for what he had done to him in the past. But after meeting Lu Ming, everything went beyond his expectations. Not only had Lu Ming's cultivation reached the Supreme Realm, but his combat strength was also strong enough to completely crush him. He had severely injured him with a single move. This is your combat strength. This is what you rely on. Trash will always be trash. Even if you came to the Yuan continent 2 years earlier, you still couldn't withstand a single blow. Lu Ming scolded coldly. You, Bing Kong was enraged as he spat out another mouthful of blood. You do have some combat strength. But with this combat strength, you dare to be arrogant in front of my heavenly god sect's disciple? I think you've found the wrong person. A cold voice resounded as a blazing aura shrouded Lu Ming. Lu Yan appeared in front of Lu Ming. Her body was covered in a golden flame. The terrifying temperature spread towards Lu Ming. What a high temperature. This person also has an innate spirit body. Lu Ming's heart moved. The flames on Lu Yan's body weren't condensed through her domain or concept, but rather directly emitted from her body. His body emitted flames at an astonishing temperature. This was something only a spirit body could do. There were some onlookers in the surroundings, but at this moment they couldn't help but retreat. Among them there were a few disciples of the Divine Dragon Valley. However, they all retreated coldly, showing no intention of attacking. Lu Yan's flame spirit body is extremely powerful. That little brat is dead for sure. If an ordinary person were to encounter an innate spirit body, they would only be killed instantly. There were a few people who spoke, taking joy in his misfortune. Nonsense, make your move. I don't have time to waste with you. Lu Ming berated. Since you're in a hurry to reincarnate, I'll fulfill your wish. Fire God slash. Lu Yan roared and slashed her palm towards Lu Ming like a blade. The flames condensed into a flaming saber and slashed towards Lu Ming's head. It was as if it was the fire god's saber. Its power was terrifying. The fledgling primal chaos domain coiled around his body as Lu Ming punched out. Boom. The prison-suppressing steel flashed in the void, allowing Lu Ming's punch to collide with the flaming saber. Shockwaves rippled out. Then the void trembled and the flaming battle saber crumbled. As for Lu Yan, she was also pushed back by the force of the impact. Is this all you've got? Lu Ming said lightly, revealing a trace of mockery. Lu Yan's face turned gloomy. Lu Ming's combat strength had exceeded her expectations. Fire God Secret Art, 8 Desolation Annihilation. Lu Yan roared. Her whole body seemed to have turned into a fire god. She was 1,000 meters tall and slashed out with her saber. Boom. Lu Ming rushed up. There was no shocking phenomenon, just a punch. It was a simple punch, but the power was enough to suppress mountains and rivers. Boom. The fist and the saber collided for the second time. Dong. Heaven and earth roared. Endless flames rushed out in all directions. The flaming saber collapsed again. Then Lu Ming stepped in the air and punched out. A terrifying fist energy crossed 100 miles and hit the fire god that was 1,000 meters tall. Boom. A big hole was punched in the fire god's huge body. The flames in the sky disappeared. Lu Yan frantically retreated. A big hole had appeared in his chest. However, he was not seriously injured. It was as if his whole body was formed by flames. At this moment, the flames in the big hole were wriggling, and the big hole was quickly mending. I have a fire spiritual body. You can't hurt me. Lu Yan's angry voice rang out. A fire spiritual body is really amazing, Lu Ming said. After breaking through to the Martial Emperor realm, the spiritual body was formed by blood. Naturally, it would have some of the characteristics of the blood. For example, the natural bloodlines such as fire, ice, water, lightning, etc. These bloodlines were difficult to break through to the martial emperor realm when they performed bloodline fusion. For example, if the flames were destroyed, the body could be reformed. Of course, this referred to the time when the bloodline fusion was performed. However, after condensing the spiritual body, it was even more amazing. For example, the fire spiritual body seemed to be made of flames. Even if the whole body was destroyed, it could be reformed, and its vitality would be greatly enhanced. However, there was a limit to everything. If the spiritual body encountered someone with a strong cultivation, it could directly destroy the spiritual body with a strong force. Is that so? The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He continued to step forward and charged towards Lu Yen. Flame cage. Lu Yen roared. His whole body turned into flames. The flames in the sky formed a huge cage enveloping Lu Ming. He wanted to use the power of the flames to refine Lu Ming. Primal chaos. The light of primal chaos spread out from Lu Ming's palm. The embryonic form of the primal chaos domain was like a ball of primal chaos, wrapping around Lu Ming's fist. Boom. Lu Ming threw a punch at the flaming cage. This time, the flaming cage completely collapsed, turning into flames that filled the sky. At the same time, the flames in the sky flew to the distance and began to converge. Lu Yan's body reappeared, but this time his face was abnormally pale, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. You can extinguish my flames. Lu Yan roared in horror. Lu Ming's punch just now had directly started to destroy his spiritual body, causing him to be seriously injured. If a few more punches came, he would probably die. What fire spiritual body? Trash. Lu Ming said coldly. He stepped into the void and headed towards Lu Yan. His primal chaos domain was the emperor of countless domains. It was normal for it to destroy a fire spiritual body. Go. Lu Yan didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and ran. Boom. A fist filled with the light of primal chaos blasted towards him. Lu Yan's body was directly penetrated by the fist, and a hole appeared in his body. Moreover, this time, no matter how he mobilized the flames to recover, the hole couldn't be healed in a short time. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, but he didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned into a flame and fled frantically. Boom. Lu Ming punched again across the sky. Chapter 14:14. A natural spiritual body was indeed mysterious. Its life force was much stronger than others. If it were anyone else, they would have been destroyed by Lu Ming's punches. However, Lu Yan was only severely injured and was able to escape. What a strong combat power. The surrounding onlookers sucked in a breath of cold air. Lu Yan had an innate fire spiritual body. Without a doubt, she was a peerless genius who had cultivated a domain martial skill. This kind of prodigy could kill other prodigies of the same level as easily as chopping vegetables. However, he was completely crushed when he encountered Lu Ming. Let's go and find a place to break through to the martial emperor realm. Even if he's strong now, he might not be strong enough to break through to the martial emperor realm. Then, their figures flashed as they left the place to find a place to break through to the martial emperor realm. The yuan qi here was unbelievably dense. It was much denser than the yuan qi of the outside world. No wonder it was the great emperor's secret realm. After Lu Yan escaped, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in front of Bing Kong. Lu Ming, spare my life. Bing Kong was extremely shocked. When he saw Lu Ming arrive, he immediately cried out in fright. Swoosh. Lu Ming did not bother to talk nonsense with him. He flicked his finger and a spear flew out, killing Bing Kong. Rumble. At that moment, a violent explosion sounded in the distance. Lightning flashed across 10,000 miles, as if it was going to tear the heavens and earth apart. Lu Ming looked into the distance and saw dark clouds gathering. A figure was resisting the lightning under the dark clouds. Someone is trying to break through to the martial emperor realm so soon. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. It was obvious that someone was trying to break through to the martial emperor realm, going through the martial emperor tribulation. Normally, no one would dare to disturb someone who was going through the tribulation. Otherwise, they would be implicated. Therefore, when someone was going through the tribulation, they would not have any scruples. No one would dare to disturb them and they would stay far away. Rumble. Dark clouds gathered and 10,000 lightning cauldrons fell from the sky, covering the figure. The martial emperor tribulation was extremely terrifying. The figure roared to the sky and resisted the tribulation. Lu Ming watched for a while before leaving. He needed to find a place to cultivate and break through to the martial emperor realm. Rumble. Before he could fly far, another loud sound rang out in front of him. Thousands of thunderbolts scattered. Another person was transcending the tribulation to become a ruler. Boom. Boom. Then Lu Ming heard thunderous booms coming from many directions. They were all transcending the tribulation and breaking through to become rulers. This time, several 100,000 people had entered, and many of them had reached the limit of the Supreme Being level. In particular, the local youths were suppressing their cultivations. Otherwise, they would have broken through to become rulers long ago. They had suppressed their cultivation in order to enter the Great Emperor's mystic realm. Now that they had entered the Great Emperor's mystic realm, they no longer needed to suppress their cultivation. They all began to break through to the Martial Emperor realm. Once they broke through to the Martial Emperor realm, they would gain the upper hand. Go! Lu Ming turned into a beam of light and left the area. After flying for more than 2 hours, Lu Ming arrived at a desolate mountain. He dug a cave in one of the mountains. Lu Ming flew in and blocked the cave. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. First, Lu Ming had to adjust his condition to the extreme and find an opportunity to condense his spirit body and break through to the next realm. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Lu Ming was like a rock, sitting there cross-legged and motionless. The aura on his body became more and more condensed and smooth. However, Lu Ming still did not find the opportunity to break through. According to the Primal Chaos scripture, every breakthrough is 10 times or 100 times more difficult than others. There's no rush. I'll take it slow. Lu Ming had many thoughts in his mind. His anxious heart gradually calmed down and he entered an ethereal state. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. Suddenly Lu Ming opened his eyes. It's done. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. Immediately, he activated the Dragon God Battle Body's Exuberance chapter. The 9 Dragons bloodline appeared. Then the 9 Dragons bloodline wrapped around Lu Ming's body. The 9 Dragons bloodline emitted a layer of blood light. This blood light constantly seeped into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming wanted to condense the 9 Dragons bloodline into his body and merge it with his physical body to cultivate the Dragon God Battle Body. The Dragon God Battle Body technique was activated. The power of the 9 Dragons bloodline constantly fused into Lu Ming's body. The stronger the bloodline, the more difficult it was to refine the bloodline. Moreover, there was a certain danger. Because the bloodline was already very powerful at this point, it could easily burst the body. This was also a step that many people found difficult to take. Fortunately, Lu Ming had already cultivated the pure spirit body and had reached 100% mastery. With the pure spirit body as the foundation, this step was not difficult for Lu Ming. The 9 Dragons bloodline constantly turned into blood light and fused into Lu Ming's body. It was extremely fast. In less than an hour, the 9 Dragons bloodline had completely faded. Then, with a bang, the 9 Dragons bloodline collapsed and turned into a ball of blood light that drilled into Lu Ming's body. The 9 Dragons' power in the 9 Dragons bloodline naturally fused into Lu Ming's body and became a part of Lu Ming's strength. At this moment, a series of dragon roars sounded from Lu Ming's body. However, the Dragon God Battle Body had not been successfully cultivated yet. It still needed to be tempered by the heavenly tribulation. Only by going through the heavenly tribulation could it be considered a success. Whoosh! Lu Ming rushed out of the cave with full force. Come on! Lu Ming's eyes were bright as he stared at the sky. Whoosh! Dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. These dark clouds seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Hiss! Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. Countless bolts of lightning swam in the dark clouds like silver snakes. A powerful pressure spread down, and the world was filled with an oppressive aura. It made people feel as if a great disaster was about to befall them. Rumble. In the sky, more and more dark clouds gathered, covering an area of 100 miles. The range is so big? Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Previously, Lu Ming had seen no less than 10 people transcending their heavenly tribulations. Their emperor's tribulations were usually covered by dark clouds, and the bigger ones were about 10 miles. However, Lu Ming's tribulation covered an area of 100 miles, and it was still increasing. What's going on? Someone is about to become an emperor and is about to transcend the tribulation. But what's with these tribulation clouds? So big? It's actually more than 100 miles. Who's transcending the tribulation? Is it an innate spiritual body? The aura of Lu Ming's tribulation cloud was too shocking. It covered an area of more than 100 miles, but the pressure spread out for 100,000 miles. Many people sensed it. They were incredibly shocked and flew over. Maybe it's really an innate spiritual body, but why is it still increasing? The range of an innate spiritual body's tribulation cloud isn't so terrifying, right? Chapter 14-15. The more heaven-defying a person was, the more powerful the heavenly tribulation would be. Innate spirit bodies were heaven-defying and did not belong to the mortal body. Therefore, the power of the heavenly tribulation would be the most terrifying. However, the range of Lu Ming's tribulation cloud had already exceeded the range of an ordinary innate spirit body. Soon, the range of Lu Ming's tribulation cloud had reached 200 miles. Thick dark clouds filled the sky and covered the sun. The aura made people feel like a disaster was imminent. Bolts of lightning swam in the dark clouds. Some of the bolts of lightning were as big as mountains. Lu Ming looked very small in front of them. In the distance, more and more people were alarmed by the tribulation cloud. Among the crowd, someone looked at Lu Ming, who was under the tribulation cloud, with a cold gaze. He was Lu Yen of the Heavenly God sect. Senior brother Lu Yen, are you talking about this person? Beside Lu Yen, a few disciples of the Heavenly God sect asked. That's right. It turns out that he is going to become an emperor here. Then let's make his dream come true. Lu Yen said coldly. Senior brother Lu Yen, are you going to kill him when he is going through the heavenly tribulation? That's too dangerous. A disciple of the Heavenly God sect said solemnly. Once he was involved in the heavenly tribulation, he would also suffer. It's okay. I have just become an emperor and have also gone through the heavenly tribulation. A mere heavenly tribulation can't do anything to me. Moreover, I have a heavenly treasure. I will kill him when he is going through the heavenly tribulation and make his dream of becoming an emperor come true. Lu Yen said. That's right. Senior brother Lu Yen is going through the innate spirit body heavenly tribulation. It is an extremely terrifying heavenly tribulation. With a heavenly treasure it will be fine. This brat is dead meat. Several disciples of the Heavenly God sect flattered him. Lu Yan's eyes flashed with malevolence. Rumble. The world rumbled. More and more lightning flashed in the dark clouds, constantly cutting through the sky and lighting up the world. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning cut through the void and struck Lu Ming. The heavenly tribulation had begun. Lu Ming looked up at the sky and stood still, allowing the lightning to strike him. Boom. When the lightning landed on Lu Ming's body, Lu Ming felt a slight numbness spread throughout his body. That felt great. Let's do it again. Lu Ming looked expectant. He wanted to use lightning to condense a spirit body. Boom, boom, boom. Then in the sky, lightning bolts fell one after another, striking towards Lu Ming. Some of the lightning bolts were as thick as mountains, completely submerging Lu Ming. The surrounding people watched quietly. They all knew that the heavenly tribulation was not very strong at the beginning. As it progressed, it would become stronger and more terrifying. Countless lightning bolts drowned Lu Ming. He did not know how many of them struck down. It feels so good. Lu Ming did not conjure his nascent chaos domain. He did not even circulate his quintessential essence to resist. He only used his physical body to resist the lightning tribulation. As bolts of lightning struck down, Lu Ming's body felt numb and itchy. Under the tempering of the lightning tribulation, his spirit body continued to deepen and condense. About a moment later, the lightning in the sky suddenly stopped and did not strike down. However, this did not mean that it was over. Everyone knew that the truly powerful and terrifying lightning was about to descend. The aura in the sky became even more oppressive. Dark clouds rolled as if something was brewing. After a while, Sila, another bolt of lightning struck down. However, the lightning this time was very different from the previous ones. The lightning this time was deeper in color and looked even more terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of lightning drowned Lu Ming. From the outside, one could not see Lu Ming's figure at all. They could only see a ball of white light. This kind of lightning was very dangerous for ordinary geniuses when they were breaking through to the martial monarch realm. They had to do their best to resist it. If they were not careful, they would risk dying. Ordinary people could become a martial monarch after passing this level of lightning tribulation. This brat's combat strength is very strong. There is still one more level of lightning tribulation, the purple fire lightning tribulation. That will be the time for me to make my move. Lu Yen, who was in the crowd, thought to herself. She did not attack. This time Lu Ming did not resist it. He used his spiritual body to resist it and circulated the dragon god's battle body to strengthen his physical body. This kind of power is more like it. The previous one was too weak. Lu Ming thought to himself as the bolts of lightning struck his body. If others heard this, they would vomit blood far away. To others it was a fatal threat. However, to Lu Ming it was ordinary. He could block it with his physical body without any resistance. After a while, this wave of lightning tribulation ended. Rumble. Dark clouds gathered high up in the sky. Lightning flashed and a purple light spread out. There's more. The next wave is the purple fire lightning tribulation. This guy is so strong. He is going to pass 3 levels of lightning tribulation. I heard that the innate spiritual body has to pass 4 levels of lightning tribulation. I wonder if this guy will pass 4 levels of lightning tribulation. I don't know. This guy's dark clouds covered a radius of 200 miles. It's bigger than the dark clouds of the innate spiritual body. He should pass 4 levels of lightning tribulation, right? Discussions could be heard in the surroundings. This time, the tribulation clouds took a longer time to brew. A full half an hour passed. Boom. A purple bolt of lightning streaked across the sky and struck toward Lu Ming. This bolt of lightning looked purple because it was covered with a layer of purple fire. This was a type of tribulation fire. It was powerful and not weaker than the lightning tribulation. The combination of the two was even more shocking. Boom. The lightning struck Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body trembled slightly and blocked the lightning. The lightning tribulation disappeared, but a layer of purple fire burned fiercely on Lu Ming's body. This was the terror of tribulation fire. The lightning tribulation could be extinguished, but the tribulation fire was difficult to extinguish. It would stick to the body of the person undergoing the tribulation until the person was burned to ashes. Lu Ming's body lit up with true yuan and began to resist the invasion of the tribulation fire. Boom. Boom. Following which, streaks of purple thunder tribulation struck down continuously, drowning Lu Ming. At this moment, a figure dashed toward the place where Lu Ming was transcending the tribulation at lightning speed. Many people were taken aback. Who is that? What is he trying to do? That's Lu Yen of the Heavenly God sect. He wants to rush into the other party's tribulation site? Lu Yan's sudden breakthrough surprised many people. Shwa. Lu Yen rushed directly into the area covered by the tribulation clouds. Boom. As soon as he rushed in, a purple lightning bolt struck toward Lu Yen. But Lu Yen casually waved his hand and the purple lightning bolt was destroyed. He had just passed the lightning tribulation, so this purple fire tribulation couldn't do anything to him. Boom. Boom. Immediately after, even more purple lightning bolts fell towards Lu Yen. Lu Yan's body bloomed with a layer of terrifying flames to resist the lightning tribulation. He broke through the lightning tribulation and approached Lu Ming. Lu Yen. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Chapter 14:16. Bring it on then. Lu Ming sneered. Rumble. The purple lightning tribulation was getting more and more terrifying. Bolts of lightning tribulation that were as thick as mountains continued to strike the two. Boom. Boom. Lu Ming exploded and punched out with both fists. Fist energy rushed up to the sky and destroyed the bolts of purple fire tribulation lightning. It seemed that the tribulation clouds in the sky were angered by Lu Ming's explosion and Lu Yan's rush. They rolled violently and more purple fire tribulation lightning fell. So many lightning tribulations? But you can't stop me. Lu Yen shouted coldly and waved his palm. Saber light burst out and broke through the lightning tribulation. He quickly closed in on Lu Ming. Swish. Lu Ming's figure moved and he retreated rapidly, distancing himself from Lu Yen. You can't escape. Lu Yen broke through the lightning and chased after Lu Ming. The tribulation clouds covered a radius of 200 miles. Lu Ming was in the center of the tribulation clouds. Lu Yen was only 80 to 90 miles away from Lu Ming. However, it was difficult to cross this distance because of the lightning tribulation. As soon as Lu Yen got close, Lu Ming would retreat. Damn it! Lu Yen shouted angrily and his aura burst out. The aura of a martial emperor spread out and his body was covered in flames. His innate fire spirit body had broken through to the martial emperor realm and completed a transformation. It had become even more terrifying and had reached the level of an inferior earth spirit body. The flames condensed into a long saber and slashed out, destroying the bolts of lightning tribulation. Lu Yan's speed increased. However, the purple lightning tribulation lightning suddenly disappeared. However, the tribulation cloud seemed to be really angry. This time they didn't even have time to prepare. Dense lightning bolts fell from the sky again. This time there were 4 colors of lightning. There were 4 different colors of lightning, and each of them covered a different thing on the surface of the lightning. Some covered fire, some covered wind, some covered water, and there was also a sharp golden aura. The 4th tribulation lightning had arrived. This kind of tribulation lightning was several times more terrifying than the purple fire tribulation lightning. This kind of tribulation lightning was a terrifying one that an innate spirit body had to face. Damn it, I've already reached the 4th lightning tribulation. Lu Yen roared in her heart. The transition time between the 3rd and 4th lightning tribulations was faster than he had expected. Even he had to treat the fourth lightning tribulation with caution. A tribulation transcending heavenly treasure. With a thought, Lu Yen summoned a purple bead and floated above her head, exuding a light barrier that enveloped her. The lightning tribulation landed on the purple light barrier. Although the purple light barrier shook violently, it was still blocked. What a powerful tribulation transcendence heavenly treasure. Can even block the fourth tribulation. In the distance, many people revealed looks of envy. Ordinary tribulation transcending heaven artifacts could withstand the second stage of thunder tribulation, but Lu Yan's tribulation transcending heaven artifact was able to withstand the fourth stage of thunder tribulation. Its power was amazing, and it was definitely one of the best tribulation transcending heaven artifacts. Lu Yan's speed increased greatly and she quickly approached Lu Ming. Whoosh! Then he quickly retreated. Kill! Lu Yan roared and slashed down with her palm, sending out a vast flaming saber light towards Lu Ming. But as soon as the saber light appeared, it was scattered by the lightning tribulation. Damn it, I have to get close to that guy to kill him. A cold light flashed in Lu Yan's eyes. She broke through the lightning tribulation and quickly approached Lu Ming, but Lu Ming used the wind origin technique and quickly retreated, keeping a distance of dozens of miles from Lu Yan. What's wrong with this guy? How can he be so fast in the face of the fourth stage of thunder tribulation? After chasing for a while, the distance between the two could not be closed, and Lu Yan became a little anxious. If she couldn't close the distance, she couldn't kill Lu Ming. Of course, he didn't know that the fourth stage of thunder tribulation was a fatal threat to others, but for Lu Ming, it was just okay, and there was no need for him to resist it with all his strength. The two, one chasing and one fleeing, circled around the area. Damn it, kid, I'll spare your life today. After chasing for a while, seeing that she couldn't catch up to Lu Ming, Lu Yan wanted to retreat. You come and go as you please? It's not that easy. Continue to transcend the tribulation with me. Lu Ming sneered. As soon as Lu Yan retreated, Lu Ming advanced, closing the distance between him and Lu Yan, so that the tribulation clouds always enveloped Lu Yan. You're courting death. Lu Yan was furious and stopped retreating, wanting to rush forward and kill Lu Ming, but as soon as he advanced, Lu Ming retreated, and as soon as he retreated, Lu Ming advanced. This made Lu Yan furious and she couldn't get away. After a stalemate, the lightning tribulation suddenly disappeared. The heavenly tribulation is over and this guy needs to stabilize his realm. Let's see how you can catch up to me. The disappearance of the heavenly tribulation made Lu Yan overjoyed. With the heavenly tribulation gone, he could easily escape and find an opportunity to kill Lu Ming. But in the next moment, Lu Yan's face changed drastically. Because the tribulation clouds in the sky didn't dissipate at all, but became even thicker. The tribulation clouds that originally covered a radius of 200 miles suddenly expanded to cover a radius of 300 miles. The oppressive pressure made it difficult for Lu Yan to breathe. How is this possible? Is this the fifth stage of thunder tribulation? Lu Yan roared, a look of horror filling her face. Run, run, run. Lu Yan almost cried. She turned around and ran, trying to escape the area covered by the lightning tribulation. At this moment, a cry resounded through the sky. In the sky, a huge goshawk flew down at an incredible speed. In an instant, it was above Lu Yan's head and swooped down on her. The fifth stage of heavenly tribulation, the manifestation of the lightning tribulation. Lu Yan screamed in horror, full of disbelief. Lu Ming was still going through the tribulation. Moreover, it was the legendary fifth stage of heavenly tribulation, the manifestation of the lightning tribulation. Ordinary innate spirit bodies would only face the fourth stage of thunder tribulation when they went through the Martial Emperor tribulation. Only some extremely abnormal people would face the fifth stage of thunder tribulation. Bang! The goshawk that was formed by the lightning tribulation fell on Lu Yan's tribulation heavenly treasure. The light screen that was formed by the tribulation heavenly treasure shook violently and almost collapsed. Run! Lu Yan's only thought was to run as far away as possible. However, how could Lu Ming let her do as she wished? He quickly approached her. The manifestation of the lightning tribulation? Lu Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. It was not the first time he had encountered this kind of thunder tribulation. It had appeared when he was going through the spiritual god tribulation. Brr, brr. Two loud roars sounded. Two huge tigers formed by the lightning tribulation pounced on Lu Ming. Suppressing hell heavenly skill. Lu Ming threw out two punches and sent the two huge tigers flying. On the other side, two more goshawks appeared. A total of 3 goshawks pounced on Lu Yan. Bang, bang. The light screen formed by Lu Yan's tribulation heavenly treasure finally could not hold on and exploded. The bead also exploded. The tribulation transcending heaven artifact exploded, and several goshawks pounced on Lu Yen. "Get lost!" Lu Yen roared. Her complete domain covered her body and blasted toward the three goshawks. However, he had already gone through the Martial Emperor tribulation and broken through to the Martial Emperor realm. Now that he was shrouded by the tribulation clouds, the power of the lightning tribulation that struck him was stronger than that of Lu Ming. It was equivalent to his own tribulation. Chapter 14:17. But when he went through the Martial Emperor tribulation, it was only the fourth great tribulation. The power of the fifth great tribulation was beyond his imagination. Boom, boom, boom. Although Lu Yen had sent the three thunder tribulation goshawks flying, there were a few bloody wounds on his body. The power of the thunder tribulation was desperately drilling into his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. But what made him despair was that in the sky, another thunder tribulation spirit appeared. This time, it was two thunder tribulation giant pythons that pounced on him. At the same time, the three goshawks also pounced on Lu Yen. Now he could only protect himself and was powerless to chase after Lu Ming. After a few explosions, Lu Yan's body was in tatters, his hair was disheveled, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Wounds appeared on his body, looking extremely ferocious. If it weren't for his powerful flame spirit body and the tenacious vitality of an inferior earth spirit body, he would have been in danger. But in the sky, a few more thunder tribulation spirits appeared and attacked Lu Yen. In the end, a total of 9 thunder tribulation spirits surrounded Lu Yen and began to fight. Lu Yen did his best to fight the 9 thunder tribulation spirits. "Hold on, I have to hold on. As long as I can hold on through this wave of lightning tribulation, I can escape with my life. Not only that, I can also use the 5th wave of lightning tribulation to train my spirit body and make it stronger." Lu Yen told herself as she exerted her strength to the peak and fought the thunder tribulation spirits. Lu Ming was also facing the siege of 6 thunder tribulation spirits, but he was much more relaxed than Lu Yen. The third bloodline floated, and wisps of energy poured into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming circulated his true qi and used the suppressing Hell Heaven skill to fight the 9 thunder tribulation spirits. Every time Lu Ming punched, a thunder tribulation spirit would be sent flying. At the same time, Lu Ming could also deliberately release some power of the thunder tribulation into his body to temper his spirit body. "It's not enough. This level of thunder tribulation is enough to temper my spirit body, but it's not enough to temper my chaotic domain into a complete chaotic domain in one go. I need a stronger thunder tribulation," Lu Ming thought. If other people knew what Lu Ming was thinking, they would probably be angered to death. Others hoped that the lightning tribulation would be as weak as possible. However, Lu Ming felt that the lightning tribulation was not strong enough and wanted a stronger one. After all, this was already the 5th stage of the heavenly tribulation. "Be destroyed," Lu Ming shouted softly. His body was suddenly filled with a layer of primal chaos. The embryonic form of the primal chaos domain was activated, greatly increasing Lu Ming's combat strength. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming punched out 9 times in a row. The 9 living beings formed by the thunder tribulation were instantly blasted apart, turning into wisps of lightning and disappearing. Heavens, in the distance those who saw this scene were tongue-tied. All of a sudden, the 9 living beings formed by the thunder tribulation were scattered. This was too shocking. On the other side, Lu Yen was desperately resisting these attacks. He succeeded. This guy has passed the Martial Emperor tribulation. The 5th stage of the heavenly tribulation is really monstrous. If this guy grows up, he can compete with the top monstrous geniuses in the Tsang state. Yes, this person has such potential. This person seems to be a disciple of Dragon God Valley. Dragon God Valley has produced another monstrous genius. Lu Ming's performance made many people talk about it. There were also some people whose eyes flickered, thinking about how to deal with Lu Ming and eliminate this great enemy. Huff, Lu Yen was gasping for breath. Lu Ming defeated the 9 living beings in one fell swoop. The 9 living beings that besieged Lu Yen also disappeared. Lu Yen was extremely miserable at this moment. His body was covered with injuries and there were still bolts of lightning running around his body, making his aura extremely weak. However, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. The heavenly tribulation was over. However, Lu Yen suddenly felt that something was wrong. After the heavenly tribulation, the tribulation clouds in the sky should have dissipated. Why were they still there? Moreover, they had become stronger. Lu Yan's pupils suddenly widened. Yes, the tribulation clouds were tumbling, as if there was a wild behemoth roaring inside. The coverage of the tribulation clouds had expanded again, covering a radius of 400 miles. Endless thunder and lightning wandered in the tribulation clouds. The terrifying aura made the people watching from thousands of miles away gasp. Sixth heavenly tribulation, no no, Lu Yen screamed hysterically. Sixth heavenly tribulation, you came at the right time, ha ha ha. Lu Ming laughed loudly. In the distance, the people watching all widened their eyes in disbelief. It was actually the sixth heavenly tribulation. There was still a sixth heavenly tribulation. They originally thought that Lu Ming had passed this tribulation and it was over. But they didn't expect that Lu Ming's heavenly tribulation was beyond imagination. There was actually a sixth heavenly tribulation. The sixth heavenly tribulation was a legendary heavenly tribulation. At least in Song State, it hadn't appeared for a long time. Run, run, run. Lu Yen went completely crazy and fled outside frantically. However, Xiao. In the sky, a sword light slashed down towards Lu Yen. Puchi. One of Lu Yan's arms was cut off. The endless power of thunder and lightning turned the arm into ashes. The power of thunder and lightning crazily drilled into Lu Yan's wound, making it difficult for his wound to heal. Originally, with his flame spirit body, even if one of his arms was cut off, he could grow it back in an instant. At most he would lose some yuan qi. But now, under the destructive power of thunder and lightning, he couldn't do it at all. Xiao. Then, in the sky, two more weapons flew down. One was a saber and the other was a spear. They were both made of thunder and lightning. The sixth heavenly tribulation weapon. No. Lu Yen tried his best to resist, but the power of the sixth heavenly tribulation had completely exceeded the scope of Lu Yan's strength. The heavenly tribulation saber slashed down and broke Lu Yan's heavy attack and defense. In the end, the heavenly tribulation spear pierced through Lu Yan's forehead. Lu Yen screamed and his whole body exploded, turning into flames that condensed a few miles away. At this moment, Lu Yan's face was pale and his aura was extremely weak. Just now, if he didn't have an inferior earth spirit body and a fire spirit body, he would have died. However, even if he escaped just now, the result was already doomed. Swish. In the sky, another saber slashed down. No. Lu Yen let out a long cry of unwillingness. He took one last look at Lu Ming. He hoped to see Lu Ming die under the heavenly tribulation as well. But he was disappointed. Lu Ming was like an invincible god of war. His whole body was covered in chaotic light as he fought against the heavenly tribulation weapon. With a punch, Lu Ming sent a heavenly tribulation weapon flying. Off. The saber slashed down on Lu Yan's forehead. This time Lu Yan could no longer recover. The destructive power of thunder and lightning destroyed his body and soul. Why? This was Lu Yan's last thought. What? Originally he wanted to take the opportunity to kill Lu Ming. Why did he die under the heavenly tribulation in the end? Chapter 14:18. The people who were watching the battle from afar were also dumbfounded. Lu Yen carried the tribulation transcendence heavenly treasure and wanted to kill Lu Ming when he was transcending the tribulation. However, in the end Lu Ming was fine. As for him, he sacrificed himself and died under the heavenly tribulation. Lu Yen is unlucky to have met such a monster. Someone sighed. Many people nodded. That was indeed the case. Lu Yen was just unlucky. If Lu Ming was just an ordinary cultivator, or even if he had an innate spirit body, he would have been killed by Lu Yen in the heavenly tribulation. But Lu Ming was not an ordinary cultivator. He was a monster who attracted the sixth heavenly tribulation. Senior brother Lu Yen is dead. We have to report this matter to the other senior brothers. This person can't be left alive. Some of the heavenly god sect disciples at the scene discussed with each other and then left the place. Clang, clang. Lu Ming waved his fist and collided with the heavenly tribulation's combat weapons. Terrifying vibrations resounded through the sky. In the sky, all kinds of weapons were constantly striking down, but no matter how many heavenly tribulation combat weapons there were, they could not defeat Lu Ming. Good, this power is more like it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He found that the power of the seventh heavenly tribulation could truly temper his chaotic domain. Every time he punched and fought against the heavenly tribulation combat weapons, there would be bolts of lightning that filled his body, helping him temper his spirit body. In his body, there were bursts of dragon roars, as if a true dragon was about to awaken. And every time he collided with the heavenly tribulation combat weapons, it was a tempering of his chaotic domain. He could feel that his primal chaos domain was transforming into a complete primal chaos domain. The seventh heavenly tribulation lasted for a long time, at least half an hour. Suddenly, Lu Ming's embryonic chaotic domain shrank and returned to his spirit soul. But then it spread out again. But this time the chaotic domain was no longer in its embryonic form, but a complete chaotic domain. The chaotic domain finally broke through and became a complete chaotic domain under the tempering of the sixth heavenly tribulation. Boom. The complete primal chaos domain enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming punched out, and a misty primal chaos light shot out, causing the tribulation weapons to explode. What a powerful force. Lu Ming was delighted. The complete primal chaos domain was too powerful. It was much more powerful than the embryonic primal chaos domain. At this time, the other Thunder Calamity soldiers in the sky also dispersed and disappeared without a trace. Have you passed the heavenly tribulation? Many people had the same question in their hearts. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, the tribulation clouds in the sky began to shrink and converge towards the center. Looks like he passed the lightning tribulation. This guy is incredible, he actually passed the sixth lightning tribulation. Impressive indeed, but his cultivation is only at the first layer martial dominator realm. The difference between him and the real geniuses is too great. Unless he manages to grow stronger, it's useless for him to die in the middle of his journey. The surrounding spectators began to discuss, believing that Lu Ming had finally transcended his heavenly tribulation. However, Lu Ming did not think so. He looked at the sky and his eyes shone brightly. This was because he felt a strong pressure, which was several times stronger than that of the sixth lightning tribulation. There's more. Lu Ming whispered. Hoo-hoo. The tribulation clouds within a radius of a few hundred miles continued to converge, and finally turned into a tribulation cloud with a radius of 30 miles. Crackle crackle. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the tribulation cloud, causing the sky to rumble. At this time, the spectators also realized that something was wrong. What's going on? The tribulation clouds did not dissipate, but gathered together. That kind of fluctuation is heart palpitating. No way, there's still the seventh lightning tribulation? Those people guessed the final answer and they were all stunned. The heavenly tribulation was not over, and there was still the seventh lightning tribulation. How could this be? No one had heard of anyone passing the seventh lightning tribulation in the Tsang prefecture for tens of thousands of years. There was a legend in the world that those who could pass the seventh lightning tribulation had the potential to become a great emperor. Although it was only the potential, it was already shocking enough. Ever since the disappearance of Emperor Tsang, no great emperor had been born in the vast Tsang prefecture. Every great emperor was a legend in the world. They were people who ruled over a region and ruled over the world. Such people had a long lifespan and they were almost immortal. The ultimate goal of all cultivators was to become a great emperor. God, such a monster has appeared in the Dragon God Valley. I wonder if he can pass the tribulation. Look, it's the World Refining Tribulation Bell. That's the World Refining Tribulation Bell. Legend has it that the World Refining Tribulation Bell only appears in the seventh lightning tribulation of the Martial Emperor Tribulation. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared ahead. The tribulation clouds churned above Lu Ming's head, and countless lightning bolts gathered to form a bell. It was a huge lightning tribulation bell. Buzz. The huge bell vibrated and descended from the sky, shrouding Lu Ming. Lu Ming could not dodge the World Refining Tribulation Bell. He was immediately enveloped by the World Refining Tribulation Bell. There was a terrifying energy within the bell that enveloped Lu Ming. This was a refining power that could refine Lu Ming's entire body. Lu Ming sat down cross-legged, circulating his quintessence. The primal chaos domain covered his entire body, blocking this refining power. However, this refining power was extremely mysterious. Although a portion of it was blocked by the primal chaos domain, a small portion still seeped into the primal chaos domain and even into the spiritual god. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. The spiritual god was the weakest part of the human body. It was also the most crucial part. If the spiritual god was destroyed, it was equivalent to dying. The refining power poured into the spiritual god. Immediately, a tearing pain came from the spiritual god. This pain came from the soul, which was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than the physical body. The power of refinement was actually able to refine even souls. Block it. Lu Ming roared, gritting his teeth and persevering. He knew that if he could not hold on, the spiritual god would collapse, and he would be completely refined by the World Refining Tribulation Bell. Lu Ming finally encountered danger after transcending the tribulation. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the bell, resisting with all his might. There were at least hundreds of people watching from the outside. They were curious if Lu Ming could transcend the seventh tribulation. The seventh tribulation, the World Refining Tribulation Bell, is extremely terrifying. It can refine everything. For tens of thousands of years, There have been geniuses in the Tsang prefecture who have faced such a tribulation, but they were all refined by the world-refining tribulation bell. That's right. It's too difficult to transcend the seventh tribulation. Some people sighed. Time passed slowly. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, in the blink of an eye 10 hours had passed. Lu Ming was still persevering in the world-refining tribulation bell. At this moment, Lu Ming's appearance was extremely terrifying. All the muscles in his body seemed to have been corroded, leaving only a skeleton. The refining power had even begun to refine his bones. Chapter 14:19. However, Lu Ming did not give up. He continued to resist and persevere. Time flew by quickly. 10 hours passed. Another 10 hours passed. Lu Ming's bones were about to be refined. Only the chaotic domain was still covering him. The soul fluctuation in the spiritual deity was extremely weak. As time passed, it became weaker and weaker. If Lu Ming's original soul power was equivalent to the moon, then Lu Ming's soul power was equivalent to a firefly. Another 10 hours passed. Lu Ming had been trapped in the world-refining calamity bell for 30 hours. At this time, Lu Ming's physical body had completely disappeared. He had been refined by the world-refining calamity bell. Phew. At that moment, the black clouds in the sky slowly dispersed and disappeared. The world refinement calamity bell below also dissipated with a bang. As for Lu Ming, he was nowhere to be seen. There was no one in the sky. He had vanished into thin air. The heavenly tribulation has passed. Where is he? There is no one. It seems like this person did not pass the seventh stage of heavenly tribulation and was refined by the world-refining calamity bell. It's a pity that a monstrous talent of a generation died under the heavenly tribulation. I just said that no matter how monstrous a talent is, it's useless if he doesn't grow up. Sighs could be heard all around. Some people felt pity for Lu Ming. A monstrous talent of a generation had fallen under the heavenly tribulation. However, there were also people who were mocking and even gloating. Let's go. We have already wasted too much time looking for the treasure left behind by the great emperor. Some people spoke. Soon there was no one left in this area. The sky was quiet. It was as if everything that had happened before was just an illusion. 2 hours later, a light spot suddenly lit up at the place where Lu Ming had just gone through the heavenly tribulation. At first, the light spot was still a little dim. However, it slowly became brighter and more resplendent. At first, it was like a firefly. Slowly, it became like a candle. Then, it became like the stars, the sun, and the moon. A terrifying attractive force was born from the light spot. The origin chi within a radius of tens of thousands of miles gathered towards the light spot. The light spot was like a black hole, devouring the origin chi. Ooh. Endless yuan chi converged as the light spot slowly took shape. It was a humanoid figure, a spiritual deity, Lu Ming's spiritual deity. Lu Ming hadn't died. He hadn't been refined. Earlier, when the tribulation clouds and the world-refining tribulation bell disappeared, it wasn't because Lu Ming had been refined and died. It was because Lu Ming had succeeded in transcending the tribulation. At this moment, Lu Ming was recovering. The suction force grew stronger and stronger. The origin energy within tens of thousands of miles was incredibly dense. Slowly, the origin energy around Lu Ming's spiritual divinity turned into liquid. The liquid wriggled and began to condense into a physical body. Lu Ming's physical body. A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. Between heaven and earth, an illusory image of 9 dragons appeared, then entered Lu Ming's body and disappeared. Half a day later, Lu Ming's body completely appeared in the sky. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly opened his eyes. With a thought, a set of clothes appeared and he put them on. I finally endured it. What a terrifying world-refining tribulation bell. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. Facing the corpse-refining tribulation bell, even Lu Ming had a narrow escape. In the end, he had endured it with his strong willpower. The world-refining tribulation bell was said to be able to refine the world. Its refining power was too terrifying. Not only could it refine the physical body, but it could also refine the spiritual deity and soul. However, after enduring it, the benefits were great. Lu Ming's current cultivation had completely surpassed the spiritual deity realm. He had entered the martial emperor realm. Now he was in the early first layer of the martial emperor realm. Boom. Lu Ming got up and threw a punch. There was a loud rumbling sound in the sky. A fist force flew out and pierced a huge hole in a mountain peak. The hole was so big that it could be seen from front to back. This was the Yuan continent, the great emperor's mystic realm. It was not the godly ruins continent. Everything in the world was incomparably solid. Lu Ming could punch a hole in a mountain. How terrifying was his power. Moreover, it was only the strength of his physical body. There is actually a faint chaotic chi in my physical body. Lu Ming carefully sensed it, and a trace of amazement appeared in his eyes. Within his muscles and bones, there was a faint aura of primal chaos. Although it was very faint, it was indeed primal chaos. Lu Ming's spiritual body had also reached the level of an inferior earth spiritual body. It was the same as what was recorded in the divine dragon battle body. However, because of the chaotic chi in his physical body, Lu Ming's spiritual body was stronger than an ordinary inferior earth spiritual body. My soul has also been greatly enhanced and tempered. What made Lu Ming the happiest was his soul. He could feel that his current soul, be it in terms of toughness, strength, or soul power, was many times stronger than before. It was at least 10 times stronger. One was heaven and the other was earth. According to Lu Ming's knowledge, it was extremely difficult to enhance one's soul. It was more than 100 times more difficult than enhancing one's martial cultivation. The stronger the soul, the stronger the spiritual god's vitality. Even if the spiritual god was injured, it would not die easily. In short, Lu Ming had successfully broken through to the martial royal realm, and his strength had increased tremendously in all aspects. I wonder how my combat strength is now. Lu Ming was looking forward to it. Lu Ming was confident that if he returned to the continent of God now, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill the 4th-level martial emperors of the continent of God. Of course, the martial royal realm of the Yuan continent was much stronger than the godly ruins continent. Lu Ming had not fought with them before, so it was hard to estimate. Also, Lu Ming stretched out his palm and faced the void. Phew! Suddenly, a terrifying devouring power erupted from Lu Ming's palm. The origin chi between heaven and earth frantically gathered towards Lu Ming. Devouring power, the devouring power of the 9 dragons. According to the records of the Dragon God's battle body, the Dragon God's battle body that was formed from the 9 dragons retained the devouring power. Now Lu Ming's body could erupt with devouring power at any time. It was more convenient than before. This way my cultivation will be faster. Lu Ming smiled. With a thought, the devouring power disappeared. It has been more than 10 days since I entered the Great Emperor's secret realm. It's time for me to take action. I can't come to the Great Emperor's secret realm in vain. Lu Ming smiled and stepped into the air, disappearing from the place. The Great Emperor's mystic realm was a plain. It was vast and boundless, and there were vast mountains everywhere. Lu Ming's speed was very fast. The mountains below him flashed past in a flash. There's a building. Suddenly Lu Ming saw a building halfway up a mountain. Lu Ming flew down. It was a palace. It looked very old, but it was in good condition. It was obvious that someone had lived in it in the past. Lu Ming stepped in. The palace was quiet and empty. Lu Ming walked around but found nothing. Even if there was something here, it must have been taken away by someone else. Chapter 14:20. Next, Lu Ming saw a few places with buildings, but he didn't find anything after entering. There were also traces of fighting in some places. Obviously, someone had come earlier and taken the things in the palace. The Great Emperor's secret realm can't only be inhabited by the Great Emperor. It's said that there are many saints under the Great Emperor. As for the emperors, they're just servants. Lu Ming thought to himself. Even if he couldn't get the treasures left behind by the Great Emperor, it would be a great gain if he could get the treasures left behind by the saints. Obviously, the buildings that Lu Ming saw were the residences of the Great Emperor's subordinates. Soon Lu Ming saw a cave dwelling in a valley. It was obviously a cave dwelling where a martial artist cultivated in seclusion. Lu Ming walked toward the cave dwelling. Whoosh! Just as Lu Ming was approaching the cave dwelling, a sword light shot out from the cave dwelling and went straight for Lu Ming's throat. The sword was sharp, and it was definitely an emperor. Clang! Lu Ming stretched out a finger and flicked it at the long sword. The long sword buzzed and vibrated violently before it was sent flying. "It's you, Lu Ming." A delicate voice sounded. Lu Ming looked and was stunned. "Lady Qiu." It was Qiu Yingying who attacked Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, I'm sorry. I thought it was someone else." Qiu Yingying looked at Lu Ming apologetically. "It's okay. Where's your brother?" Lu Ming asked. "My brother is cultivating inside. In this cave abode, there is a heavenly Tao mark left by an expert." Qiu Yingying said. "A heaven path mark?" Lu Ming's eyes lit up. "That's right. You'll know when you come in." Qiu Yingying said. Lu Ming nodded and entered the cave dwelling with Qiu Yingying. The cave dwelling was very spacious. There was a mark on one of the walls that seemed to have been carved by someone's finger. Lu Ming glanced at it and was deeply attracted. This mark was like the embodiment of the Great Tao. One could comprehend the profundities of the Great Tao from this mark. It was very difficult for martial emperors to raise their strength. First, he had to comprehend the domain. Domains were divided into 9 levels. It corresponded to the 9th layer of the martial emperor realm. Only when one's domain improved could one's cultivation increase. However, in order to increase one's cultivation base, one needed not only to refine one's true essence but also to refine one's spirit body. Therefore, every step forward in the martial emperor realm was not easy. As for these great Tao marks, they were carved into the stone walls by powerhouses when they were comprehending the heavenly Tao. Later generations could correspond to these marks and comprehend the heavenly Tao. From the heavenly Tao, they could comprehend their own domain and achieve the goal of improving their domain. After watching for a while, Lu Ming took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Below the stone wall, a figure sat cross-legged, quietly comprehending. It was obvious that Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao had also passed the martial emperor tribulation and broken through to the martial emperor realm. Qiu Hao must have been comprehending the heavenly Tao marks and Qiu Yingying was guarding for him. Qiu Yingying attacked when she saw someone coming. Miss Qiu, brother Qiu is comprehending. Let's guard outside the cave. I'm afraid we'll disturb him if we stay here. Lu Ming said. Okay. Qiu Yingying nodded and walked out of the cave with Lu Ming. They waited quietly outside the cave. About 3 hours later, Qiu Hao walked out of the cave. He was overjoyed when he saw Lu Ming. Brother, you've finished comprehending? Qiu Yingying asked. Yes. The heavenly Tao marks are not very profound. Moreover, with my comprehension ability, I can only comprehend up to this point. Qiu Hao nodded and sighed. Brother Lu, go ahead and comprehend. I've already comprehended them before. Big brother and I will guard for you. Qiu Yingying said. Okay. Lu Ming nodded and walked into the cave abode. He sat cross-legged under the notch and stared intently at it. But in Lu Ming's eyes, the notch began to change. It turned into wisps of Tao aura. It was extremely mysterious. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and verified it with his own chaotic domain. The chaotic domain was the king of all domains. However, no matter how mysterious it was still a part of the great path of heaven and earth. It also needed to be comprehended from the great path of heaven and earth. Gradually, Lu Ming entered an ethereal state. Primal chaos is the beginning of all things and also the end of all things. As time passed, Lu Ming's body emitted a layer of chaotic light. The Qiu siblings sat cross-legged outside the cave to guard Lu Ming. Suddenly, the siblings opened their eyes at the same time and looked into the distance. 2 streaks of light streaked across the sky and flew toward them. Then, the streaks of light faded and 2 young men appeared in the sky. There's an ancient cave abode here. We're in luck. One of the young men smiled. The 2 of them descended from the sky and looked at Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. We want this place. Get out of here. The other young man waved his hand casually. We found this place first. Also, we have a friend who is cultivating inside. Qiu Yingying explained. Nonsense. So what if you found it first? Get out of here with your friend. The young man from before scolded. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao's faces darkened. The other party was too overbearing. They wanted to take the place as soon as they arrived and told Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao to get out of here. My friend is cultivating. When he's done, we'll leave. Qiu Hao said. Nonsense. We don't have time to wait for you. If you don't leave, you'll stay here forever. The young man from before said coldly. A domain spread out from his body. Whoosh. His body flashed and attacked Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. The other young man did not attack. He just watched with a sneer. Qiu Yingying. Falling flowers and flowing water. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao had no choice but to fight back. Both of them cultivated the water domain. Their domains spread out and formed numerous water dragons that wrapped around each other. People from the Divine Dragon Valley. Divine Dragon Valley is always going against the Divine Dragon sect. You're courting death. The young man from before snorted. He waved his hand and countless rays of light cut through the water dragons. He then attacked Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. Domain martial technique. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao's faces changed. They quickly spread out their domains and formed 2 water shields in front of them. Bam, bam, bam. The rays of light cut through the water shields. The shields shook violently and were on the verge of collapsing. Break. The young man from before, who was from the Divine Dragon sect, pressed his palm down again. An even stronger ray of light burst out and pressed down on the Qiu siblings. Boom. This time, the water shield could no longer withstand the attack and exploded with a loud bang. The siblings let out a muffled groan as their bodies were sent flying. They crashed into the wall and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. How dare you stop me? You're courting death. The young man from the Divine Dragon sect strode toward the Chiu siblings, his face cold. I'll go in and have a look. Chapter 14:21. As soon as he saw Lu Ming, the Heavenly God sect youth's expression changed. However, when he realized that Lu Ming was cultivating, his face was filled with surprise and ferocity. It's this brat. Even senior brother Lu Yen is no match for him. However, it's thanks to heaven's blessing that this brat is cultivating. Haha, as long as I kill this brat, the Saintess will definitely look at me in a different light. The youth was overjoyed. His true chi burst forth as he sent a palm strike towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming was still cultivating, seemingly oblivious to everything around him. The terrifying palm strike instantly closed in on Lu Ming. At this moment, the light of primal chaos spread out from Lu Ming's body. The primal chaos domain automatically bloomed outwards. Boom. The youth's palm strike landed on the primal chaos domain. Immediately, his body shook violently. His expression changed drastically as he spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. He flew out of the ancient cave mansion's entrance and fell to the ground. Whoosh. At this moment, Lu Ming opened his eyes. A cold light flashed across his eyes. No one would be in a good mood if they were interrupted at a critical moment in their cultivation. Lu Ming got up and took a step forward, appearing outside the cave abode. Brother Lu. Chiu Ying and Chiu Hao were overjoyed. Originally, they were extremely worried when they saw another person rush into the cave mansion. However, they could do nothing about it. Now that they saw Lu Ming come out unscathed, they were greatly relieved. It's him. When the youth outside saw Lu Ming, his heart trembled. They had seen Lu Ming from afar when he was going through his tribulation. Now that they saw Lu Ming, they were terrified. Let's go. Without hesitation, they turned and ran. The youth who was injured by Lu Ming did the same. Where do you think you're going? Come back. Lu Ming's palm faced the air as he suddenly sucked. Buzz. A terrifying devouring power erupted from Lu Ming's palm and enveloped the two youths from the Heavenly God sect. They were originally flying forward, but after being enveloped by the devouring power, their bodies seemed to be frozen. Then they were pulled back by the devouring power. No. The two of them roared and attacked with all their might, trying to break through the devouring power. However, Lu Ming narrowed his eyes and pressed down with his chaotic domain. Buff, buff. Their bodies shook violently as they coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. They were directly pulled back by the devouring power. Furthermore, their essence blood, true yuan, and blood were rapidly flowing out of their bodies, flying into Lu Ming's palm. No, spare me. This situation caused the two of them to scream in fear. However, Lu Ming remained unmoved and continued to unleash his devouring power. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the two young men had turned into two dried corpses and died here. Chiu Ying and Chiu Hao gasped. Firstly, he was shocked by Lu Ming's combat strength. The two young men from the Celestial Divinity sect had both passed the Imperial Tribulation and become Imperial Emperors. On top of that, they had practiced domain martial skills and were extremely strong. Even if the Chiu clan's brother and sister joined forces, they could not defeat one of them. However, in Lu Ming's hands, the other party did not have the ability to retaliate at all. Lu Ming killed the two of them without moving a single step. Secondly, they were shocked by Lu Ming's overbearing means of devouring them directly and turning them into dried corpses. After devouring their essence blood, Lu Ming began to refine it. Now that Lu Ming had become a martial emperor and practiced the dragon god's combat body, his devouring power was much stronger than before. Soon, Lu Ming had almost finished refining the two men's essence blood. It's really useless. Lu Ming shook his head secretly. The energy he devoured was still useful for increasing his true yuan and condensing his spiritual body. However, it was useless for improving his domain. Domains were different from Intent Realm. Intent Realm had intent runes. One could devour and refine them into one's own Intent Realm runes to improve one's own Intent Realm. However, domains were even more mysterious. They did not have substance and were just a kind of comprehension of a martial artist. They were illusory and could not be devoured and refined. Therefore, one had to rely on one's own comprehension to break through domains. However, Lu Ming was satisfied. He only needed to focus on improving his domain. The improvement of his true yuan was still dependent on the devouring power. This was a huge advantage compared to others. Lu Ming, are you okay? Chiu Ying asked. I'm fine. How about you? Lu Ming asked. We're just slightly injured. We'll be fine after some rest. Chiu Ying said. Lu Ming, continue to cultivate. We'll protect you. Chiu Hao said. Lu Ming shook his head and said, There's no need. That heavenly Tao mark isn't too profound. I've already comprehended most of it. If I continue to comprehend it, I won't gain much in the short term. You'd better recuperate first. After the comprehension just now, the chaotic domain had improved a little. Not only was it completely stable, but it was also at the middle stage of the first level. Domains were divided into 9 levels. Lu Ming's cultivation could only break through to the second level of the Dao Martial Royal Realm if he cultivated the chaotic domain to the second level. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao sat cross-legged and took a healing pill to heal their injuries. 2 hours later, their injuries were almost healed. The 3 of them did not stay any longer. They soared into the sky and flew forward. Along the way they came across some buildings and cave dwellings. However, they were all 1 step ahead of them. The 3 of them did not stop and kept moving forward. Not long after, they arrived at a vast land. There was a huge group of buildings in front of them. Many huge palaces stood on a piece of plain. From afar, Lu Ming and the rest could see figures flashing in those palaces. Many people were exploring this area. Such a large group of buildings. Could it be the great emperor's palace? Even if it's not, it must be the residence of a great figure. There must be treasures. Qiu Hao's eyes lit up. Let's go down and try our luck, Lu Ming said. The 3 of them flew down and landed in front of a huge palace. Boom, boom. There was a shocking explosion in the palace. The 3 of them walked closer and saw 2 young men fighting fiercely. On the ground, corpses were strewn all over the place. Blood flowed continuously, and it had yet to dry up. Hand over the treasure. One of the young men shouted and attacked the other young man crazily. Don't even think about it. The treasure belongs to the fated. Since I got it, it means that I'm fated with the treasure. The other young man shouted. Bullshit. If I kill you, the treasure will be fated with me. The first young man shouted. The 2 of them fought fiercely and the palace cracked and collapsed. Obviously, a treasure had appeared and everyone was fighting over it. The corpses on the scene belonged to the prodigies who had entered the place, but they were all dead now. Let's go look elsewhere, Lu Ming said. The 3 of them turned around and walked toward the other palaces. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, numerous figures flew out from one of the palaces. There were more than 100 of them, all of whom were young men who had entered this place. Their faces were deathly pale. Run, run, run. The young men shouted. Buzz. Chapter 1422. Shrill screams rang out. Most of the 100 or so people had their bodies pierced by the black light. They fell to the ground while screaming, no longer breathing. Only a dozen or so people managed to escape with their lives. Almost 100 people had died in an instant. Lu Ming saw that half of the people had passed the Martial Emperor tribulation and become Martial Emperors. The rest were still Martial Emperors, but they had all died in an instant. The Great Emperor's secret realm was not simple. It was dangerous at all times. Not only did they have to face the attacks of others, but there were also dangers in the process of exploring. I just saw someone sitting inside. Indeed, there seems to be someone, but there is no aura of life. He is dead. There must be treasures. The dozen people who survived did not leave but wandered around. This is a formation. However, it has been many years and is no longer complete. If we can find a gap, we might be able to enter. A young man who practiced inscription Dao looked around, looking for a gap in the formation. Lu Ming did the same. He looked around the palace. Although Lu Ming could not inscribe formations because his second body had not recovered, he shared the knowledge of the second body. In other words, his main body had the knowledge and insight of the second body. Even if he could not break the formation, he could still find a gap. Follow me closely, Lu Ming said to Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. Then he strode forward. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao followed closely behind Lu Ming. On the other side, the other young men also started to look for a gap in the formation and stepped in. Lu Ming, you also know inscription Dao, but I didn't feel that you have a spiritual fire. Strange. Qiu Yingying looked at Lu Ming curiously as they walked. She found it strange. Lu Ming smiled and did not explain further. The 3 of them walked around. After a while, they finally passed through the formation and entered the hall of the palace. There is someone, Qiu Yingying said. There was a person sitting cross-legged in the hall. It was a woman who looked to be in her 40s. Unfortunately, she did not have the slightest bit of life force. Clearly this was a corpse. Could this be someone from the Great Emperor's mystic realm? Great Emperor Tsang has been missing for 60,000 years. Could this person have also died 60,000 years ago? Qiu Hao guessed. Their hearts trembled. If this person had died 60,000 years ago and his body hadn't decayed yet, his cultivation base would be shockingly high. Sage. The three of them thought at the same time that only saints could maintain their bodies without decaying for so many years. Otherwise, even a top-grade ruler's body would have decayed after 60,000 years. How did this person die? There's no wound at all, Qiu Yingying said. Taking a closer look, Zhang Xian was unable to find any wounds on the other party's body. His storage ring is also gone. Could it be that he was killed and his storage ring was taken away? But why is there no wound? Lu Ming also frowned, unable to figure it out. The few of them looked around. In the hall, there were some chairs and tables, but after so many years, they had already decayed and turned into ashes. Finally, their gazes fell on the woman's body. She was wearing a purple feather robe. At first glance, it was a supreme treasure. Even after so many years, it still shone with a spiritual radiance. It was definitely a precious treasure. Since it was worn by a sage, it was very likely to be a sacred weapon. Sacred weapon. The few of their eyes lit up. At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. A few young men rushed in. As soon as they entered, their gazes fell on the woman. Sacred weapon. This is definitely a sacred weapon. It's priceless. The few young men's eyes were burning with passion. Then their gazes fell on Lu Ming and the others, and a ferocious look flashed past their eyes. Kill these people and we'll split the spoils equally. How about that? One of the young men said. Sure. Kill. The few young men charged towards Lu Ming and the others at the same time. All sorts of powerful attacks were unleashed. These few people were very strong. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to escape from the array earlier. When they attacked together, their power was shocking. Courting death. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He took a step forward and a violent aura spread out from his body. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming threw out a series of punches. Streams of fist energy swept across the void. The attacks of the few young men collapsed under Lu Ming's fist energy. The fist energy didn't stop and continued to attack the few young men. No, the few young men's faces changed drastically. They wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Their screams were drowned by the fist energy. When the fist energy disappeared, the few young men's bodies had been penetrated by Lu Ming and they died on the spot. Yingying, this feather robe is for women. Take it. Lu Ming said. How can I? Qiu Yingying wanted to refuse. After all, they were just following Lu Ming. They relied on Lu Ming. They entered the hall and killed those people just now because of Lu Ming. She didn't do anything, but the treasure was hers. How could she accept it? It's fine. We can't use a woman's item. Take it. Lu Ming said. Qiu Yingying pondered for a while and nodded. She bowed to the woman and took off the feather robe and put it into her storage ring. Then the three of them walked out of the hall. There's an underground palace up ahead. Let's go and have a look. There must be some great treasures there. The three of them heard the news as soon as they walked out of the hall. Streams of light streaked across the void and flew toward the depths of the buildings. An underground palace. The three of them looked at each other and saw the desire in each other's eyes. Shall we go and have a look? Qiu Hao said. Let's go. Lu Ming nodded. The three of them rose into the air and flew toward the depths of the buildings. Below them, the vast buildings flashed past in a flash. Soon, the three of them saw a dense crowd in the air ahead. There were at least a few thousand of them. Each of them emitted a powerful aura. More than half of them emitted the aura of martial emperors. Most of the young people who had entered this time were at the peak of the 9 Heavens Supremes, especially the local youths. Therefore, they had all broken through to the martial emperor realm as soon as they entered. The rest of them had yet to reach the peak of the 9 Heavens Supremes, so they had yet to break through. The group of people looked ahead. Lu Ming and the others went forward and looked ahead as well. In front of them, a place on a plain had collapsed. A faint light spread out from it. It was a corner of a building. Judging from its shape, it should be the corner of a huge palace. The rest of the palace was still buried underground. From the conversations of the people around them, Lu Ming and the others learned that there had been a great battle here. The ground had collapsed and they had discovered the palace. Everyone, this palace is buried deep underground. It must be extraordinary. How about we dig it out? Chapter 1423. All right, I agree. Me too. Everyone chimed in. Facing such an underground palace, everyone was very tempted, wanting to go in and explore. All right, let's begin then. Then they began to dig. Everyone there was an expert with a high cultivation base, so it was not difficult for them to dig a palace. They broke open the ground and threw a large amount of rocks and soil into the distance. Soon, a huge palace was revealed in front of everyone. Rather than calling it a palace, it would be better to call it a fortress. The fortress was incomparably huge and magnificent. It was obvious that the person who lived in the fortress was extraordinary. Could it be the great emperor's palace? Someone guessed. There was a stone door in front of the fortress, but it was tightly shut. Whoosh. Someone slashed a sword light at the fortress wall, but the fortress did not budge at all. It did not even leave a mark. It seemed that the only way to enter the fortress was through the door. Boom. Someone slapped a palm print at the door. The door shook violently, but it did not open. Everyone, let's work together to break open the door. Someone suggested. Everyone nodded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, rays of light flew out from the crowd and blasted toward the door of the fortress. Rumble. The door shook violently and began to shake. It's working. Continue. Attack. More rays of light and attacks of various colors blasted toward the door. The door shook even more violently. Crack. Finally, the door creaked and slowly opened on both sides. A moment later, the door was completely open. It was pitch black behind the door. At that moment, many people stopped and looked around. Now that the door was open, the people who were working together just now would soon become enemies and competitors because everyone wanted the treasure. At that moment, Lu Ming suddenly felt his heart palpitate for some reason. He had a feeling that a disaster was imminent. Kill, kill, kill. Just at this moment, a terrifying voice rang out from within the fortress. A heart-palpitating ripple was emitted from the door. Some of the young men standing at the front did not even have time to react before their bodies exploded. Oh no, retreat. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He pulled Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao and retreated frantically. Kill, kill, kill. Within the fortress, roars filled with boundless killing intent could be heard. Their voices were filled with an intense unwillingness to accept defeat. An invisible wave of energy swept out from the door. One by one, the bodies of the young men exploded into pieces. Run, run, run. The remaining people were scared out of their wits and frantically ran away. However, the invisible ripple was rapidly spreading. One by one, the young men let out blood-curdling screams. Amidst their screams, their bodies were torn apart. A wave of energy spread towards Lu Ming, causing Lu Ming's heart to palpitate. Block it. Lu Ming set up his chaotic domain in front of him, covering Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. At the same time, his glabella shone, and a lightning cauldron appeared in front of him. Clang. The lightning cauldron was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. It shook violently and was sent flying. Then the chaotic domain also shook violently. A terrifying force passed through the chaotic domain and acted on Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body trembled and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Beside him, Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao spat out mouthfuls of blood. Their faces were pale. However, with the help of this force, Lu Ming retreated thousands of miles with the Qiu siblings and finally dodged the invisible attack. It was obvious how terrifying the ripple was. First, it sent the lightning cauldron flying. Then it passed through the chaotic domain and injured Lu Ming. The others were even more miserable. There were originally thousands of people, but almost all of them had died in that attack. Only a small number of people managed to survive by relying on powerful secret techniques and powerful secret treasures. They all looked at the fortress in fear. That fortress was simply a fortress that could take their lives. Could there be a supreme expert living inside? What was that roar just now? After roaring a few times, the roar stopped and did not continue. What's going on? Lu Ming and the others stood in the distance and looked at the fortress with fear. This fortress was too strange. They waited for a while, but now the fortress was silent. There was no movement. Buzz. At that moment, a jade talisman suddenly appeared on Qiu Yingying's body. The jade talisman vibrated slightly, and then a light shield enveloped Qiu Yingying. What's going on? Qiu Yingying was shocked. Whoosh. In the next moment, the jade talisman took Qiu Yingying and flew toward the fortress in front of them. It flew through the gate of the fortress and disappeared at an astonishing speed. Yingying. Qiu Hao turned pale with fright. He hurriedly chased after them and disappeared through the gate. There was nothing unusual. What's going on? Lu Ming was stunned. Why did a jade talisman suddenly fly out of Qiu Yingying's body and take her into the fortress? All of this happened so quickly that Lu Ming could not react in time. Let's go take a look. In the end, Lu Ming gritted his teeth. The lightning cauldron floated above his head and covered his body with the chaotic field. He also flew toward the gate of the fortress. There was nothing unusual until he reached the gate. Lu Ming did not stop and flew directly into the gate. Some people in the outside world were shocked when they saw this scene. What's going on? Those people flew in, but they're fine. Maybe they're fine now. Someone said. However, for a while no one dared to go in. After a while, someone finally gritted his teeth and flew toward the gate. He flew into the gate and disappeared. Nothing unusual happened. Seeing this scene, more people flew in. Moreover, there were still people flying in from the distance. The fortress was very spacious and huge. After Lu Ming flew into the gate, a long passage appeared in front of him. After flying through the passage, he saw some forked corridors and passages. Where did Ying and the others fly to? Lu Ming frowned, then randomly chose a passage and walked forward. On both sides of the passage there were stone houses. Lu Ming walked into the first stone house and found nothing. When he walked into the second stone house, he finally found something. A skeleton. Lu Ming found a skeleton. The skeleton's bones were as white as jade. It was sitting cross-legged on the bed. It gave people the feeling that it suddenly died while cultivating cross-legged. Lu Ming guessed that it should be a ruler. Chapter 1424. After looking around for a while, Lu Ming left the place and went to the other stone huts. Lu Ming discovered some skeletons in these stone houses. They should be emperor-level skeletons. However, their storage rings were gone and Lu Ming did not find anything. Lu Ming walked along the passage and finally came to a secret room. There were a few boxes in the room. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he opened one of the boxes. Inside, there were some materials for refining weapons. Lu Ming was overjoyed after taking a closer look. That was because these materials were simply too precious. They were all materials that could be used to refine saint artifacts. If taken out, they would be priceless. Finally, he found something good. Lu Ming smiled and put the box of materials into the mountain river diagram. Next, Lu Ming opened the second big box. In the second box, there were also refining materials. They were all very precious and could be used to refine sacred weapons. Lu Ming put it away and looked at the third box. There were only 3 boxes here. The third box was the smallest. Are they all materials for refining weapons? Lu Ming thought to himself. He then opened the box. As soon as the box was opened, a strange energy wave spread out. The energy wave was extremely mysterious, like the aura of the heavenly path. It was very similar to the aura of the heavenly path mark that Lu Ming saw in the ancient cave abode. It was the aura of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Lu Ming looked into the box. Inside the box were pieces of chaotic colored stones. Each of them was about the size of a fist. There were 100 of them in total. Lu Ming's eyes widened as he thought of something. He was surprised. Are these the heavenly path stones? Lu Ming's heart pounded. The heavenly path stones, as the name suggested, contained the aura of the heavenly path. It was said that they were born from chaos when the heavens and earth were first created. They contained the great Tao and were extremely precious. Martial dominators could use the heavenly path stones to comprehend and improve their domains. Even saints could use the heavenly law stone to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth. However, there were too few heavenly Tao stones. They were born at the beginning of the world and were extremely rare. Every time one was used, there would be one less heavenly Tao stone. As time passed, the number of heavenly Tao stones became fewer and fewer, and their prices also became more and more precious. I'm rich. There are so many heavenly law stones here. Lu Ming was delighted. He counted and found that there were a total of 108 pieces. My primal chaos domain is extremely difficult to cultivate, and it takes a long time to improve. It's much slower than other domains, but with the heavenly law stone, my speed won't be surpassed by too much. Lu Ming had many thoughts in his mind. The power of the primal chaos domain and the emperor of myriad domains was astonishing, but there was a drawback. It was too difficult to cultivate. However, with the heavenly Tao stone, Lu Ming's comprehension speed would definitely increase greatly. Lu Ming kept the heavenly Tao stone in a storage ring. Lu Ming was afraid that if he kept it in the mountain and river diagram, it would be ruined by Dandan. After keeping the heavenly Tao stone, Lu Ming went out and continued to move forward. Not long after, there was light in front of him, and at the same time, there was a burst of medicinal fragrance. There was a medicinal fragrance. There were spiritual herbs. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he strode forward. Sure enough, there was a herb garden in front of Lu Ming. The rich medicinal fragrance kept drilling into Lu Ming's nose. There are so many spiritual herbs. This is the 1,000 chance fruit and jade snow lotus. Lu Ming swept his gaze across the place, his eyes revealing a scorching glow. At a glance, there were at least level 9 spiritual herbs. Lu Ming could see that there were a few semi-sage herbs. Semi-sage herbs were one step away from becoming sacred herbs. Lu Ming once bought a semi-sage herb that was about to lose its spirituality. It was still planted next to the tree of enlightenment. Now, it had completely recovered. However, there were at least 7 semi-sage herbs here. That's In the end, Lu Ming looked to the front. There was a small tree about a meter tall. It was sparkling and translucent, overflowing with light and color. There was a mysterious fluctuation coming from it. The ancient heavenly liquid tree. Lu Ming whispered with ecstasy in his eyes. This was a sacred herb, a real sacred herb. Even Saint Realm experts would break their heads if they saw it. The branches and leaves of the ancient heavenly liquid tree would produce a kind of spiritual liquid called heavenly liquid every once in a while. It was priceless and more effective than the water of life. Whether it was to restore true essence or heal injuries, it was very effective. There was a skeleton half squatting next to the ancient heavenly liquid tree, holding a jade bottle in its hand. It seemed that it was collecting the heavenly liquid tree. Lu Ming walked over and picked up the jade bottle. Sure enough, there was half a bottle of heavenly liquid in the jade screen. Great! Lu Ming was overjoyed. Then, his figure flickered, and he collected all the level 9 spiritual herbs and semi-sage herbs on the scene. Finally, he uprooted the ancient heavenly liquid tree and planned to plant it in the mountain and river diagram. After collecting the spiritual herbs, Lu Ming entered the mountain and river diagram with a thought. First, Lu Ming went to his second body. After a few months of recuperation and with the help of a bottle of supreme-grade water of life, his body had finally recovered. However, his origin chi had not fully recovered and needed to rest. Lu Ming took out half a bottle of heavenly liquid. His second body took it and drank it in one gulp. Then he closed his eyes and continued to recuperate. Then Lu Ming stepped out and went to the place where Dandan and Bubbles were. The valley was originally full of spiritual herbs, but now, almost all of them had been eaten. Dandan and Bubbles were sleeping there. As if sensing Lu Ming's arrival, Dandan opened his sleepy eyes and said, "Lu Ming, do you have any more spiritual herbs? Give me some more. I'm about to recover." "Take them." Lu Ming waved his hand and more than 100 supreme-grade level 9 spiritual herbs flew out. Each of these spiritual herbs was supreme-grade level 9 spiritual herbs. Moreover, they had been nurtured in the herb garden for at least 60,000 years. Their medicinal efficacy was amazing, far surpassing that of ordinary supreme-grade level 9 spiritual herbs. So many supreme-grade level 9 spiritual herbs. Boy, it seems that you have encountered another fortuitous encounter. Dandan's eyes lit up. He grabbed 2 of them and stuffed them into his mouth. Chirp chirp, a white light flashed. Bubbles had woken up at some point. He grabbed a few spiritual herbs and gnawed on them. "With these spiritual herbs, you should be able to recover, right?" Lu Ming said, his heart aching. If he sold these spiritual herbs, he would definitely be able to get a lot of origin stones. "Well, with these spiritual herbs, it's about time. If there are more, I will be able to level up." Dandan muttered, stuffing spiritual herbs into his mouth as he spoke. "Oh, then these are for you too." Lu Ming took out the 7 semi-sage herbs. If Dandan and Bubbles could level up, they would be of great help to him. Naturally, he was willing to give them to them. Chirp chirp, these are semi-sage herbs. 7 of them. Dandan's eyes suddenly lit up. He kicked his limbs and pounced on Lu Ming. Bam. Chapter 1425. "Ah, little one, you're pissing me off. How dare you kick me?" Dandan roared and rushed to Lu Ming's shoulder, gnashing its teeth and glaring fiercely at Bubble. Chirp chirp. Bubble burped, blinked its big black eyes and looked at Dandan innocently, which made Dandan so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Come, here are 6 half-saint herbs, 3 for each of you." Lu Ming gave the 6 half-saint herbs to Dandan and Bubble respectively. "That's not fair. Why do I only get 3? This little one gets 4. Dandan shouted. "Go away. How old are you? Don't you find it shameful to be so serious with Bubble?" Lu Ming had a look of disdain. Chirp chirp. Bubble took the 3 half-saint herbs, stuffed them into his mouth and wriggled in Lu Ming's arms. Dandan's face turned blue with anger. He took the 3 half-saint herbs and ran away. Then Lu Ming took out the ancient heavenly liquid tree. Swish. As soon as the ancient heavenly liquid tree was taken out, Dandan rushed over in an instant and said with wide eyes, "Nest, sacred herb, a real sacred herb. Hey, this is the ancient heavenly liquid tree. It's different from other sacred herbs. It's a waste to swallow it directly. If you dare to touch it, I'll cook you." Lu Ming stared at Dandan. He was a little afraid that this guy would swallow the ancient heavenly liquid tree while he was away. "Ah, how can that be? Who am I? How can I steal sacred herbs? Moreover, the ancient heavenly liquid tree's heavenly liquid is priceless. Swallowing it directly won't have any effect." "I know." Dandan smiled brightly, but his eyes still glanced at the ancient heavenly liquid tree from time to time. Lu Ming was too lazy to pay attention to Dandan. He found a place and planted the ancient heavenly liquid tree. After that, Lu Ming came out of the mountain river diagram. This place is definitely the residence of an expert. Even if he's not a martial monarch, he's still a formidable expert. Let's search carefully. Lu Ming left the medicinal plant garden and proceeded along the passageway. Before long he saw quite a few passageways that forked off into different directions. He randomly picked one and began to search for treasures in the fort. During this period he saw many skeletons. The bones were sparkling and translucent, and they were all the skeletons of rulers. Nonetheless, the strange thing was that these skeletons were intact. They did not seem to have experienced a great battle when they were alive, so he did not know how they died. Moreover, he didn't see any storage rings. Lu Ming explored along the way and gradually approached the center of the fortress. In the center of the fortress was a large hall. At this moment, an intense battle was taking place. More than a dozen young men and women surrounded the two of them. The two people who were surrounded were Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. At this moment, Qiu Yingying was sitting cross-legged with a layer of holy light emanating from her body. She looked solemn as if she had fallen into an ethereal state. As for Qiu Hao, he held a shield in his hand, and a golden bell floated above his head. The shield and the golden bell both emitted rays of light, and a mysterious and unfathomable aura leaked out. Whoosh, whoosh. Two rays of sword light pierced toward Qiu Hao from the left and the right. They were as fast as lightning and their power was shocking. Buzz. The golden bell above Qiu Hao's head buzzed, and two rays of light scattered down, destroying the two rays of sword light. A sacred weapon is indeed powerful. One of the young men said. Everyone, let's attack together. That woman has obtained the inheritance of an expert here, and that man has obtained two sacred weapons. The sacred weapons are extremely powerful. One or two of us won't be able to defeat this kid. A red-faced young man said. That's right. Let's attack together. The others chimed in. The dozen of them were all first-layer martial royal realm cultivators. Their auras made Qiu Hao's face turn serious. Kid, you'd better hand over the sacred weapons. You can't take them for yourself. Also, interrupt that woman's inheritance and force her to hand it over. The red-faced young man said coldly. He looked at Qiu Yingying with a greedy look. This woman was too lucky to have obtained the inheritance of this place. The owner of this place was definitely a powerful expert. Who wouldn't want the inheritance of such an expert? Don't even think about it. If you interrupt my sister's inheritance, she will be severely injured or even killed. If you want to interrupt her, you'll have to do it over my dead body. Qiu Hao shouted angrily. He held the shield in his hand and the golden bell above his head buzzed. Humph, kid, don't think you're so great just because you've obtained two sacred weapons. You've just obtained them and have yet to refine them. Moreover, with your cultivation, how much power can you unleash? You won't be able to stop us. The red-faced young man sneered. Let's see who dares to touch the people of the Divine Dragon Valley. At that moment, a voice came from a passage at the side of the hall. Then a group of people appeared in the hall. There were more than 20 of them. Their auras were released. They were all martial royal realm experts. The Divine Dragon Valley. Qiu Hao's eyes lit up. He quickly shouted, Senior brothers, save us. It's you? A chuckle came from the group of people from the Divine Dragon Valley. A figure stepped out. The person was wearing a silver robe and had a cold expression. If it wasn't Yin Feng, who else could it be? Yin Feng. Qiu Hao's face turned pale. What's going on? Yin Feng strode out. The other young men and women looked pale. With so many people from the Divine Dragon Valley, it would be difficult to deal with them. We found the treasures and inheritances here together. Don't you think the Divine Dragon Valley is too greedy to take them all for yourselves? The red-faced young man said in a deep voice. Inheritances? Treasures? Yin Feng glanced at Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao and understood what was going on. A hint of greed flashed in his eyes. The two of you are quite lucky. One of you obtained the inheritances and the other a sacred weapon. Now give me the sacred weapons. Yin Feng said. Give them to you? Qiu Hao's face turned pale. That's right. Give them to me. Can you keep them? Also, stop your sister's inheritance immediately. How can she accept the inheritance of such an expert? Yin Feng said with disdain. No, I can give you the treasures, but I can't stop Yingying's inheritance. Qiu Hao gritted his teeth. No. Yin Feng's face turned cold and he said, if you don't hand them over, then you can deal with it yourselves. Yin Feng snickered and walked to the side with the other disciples of the Divine Dragon Valley as if it had nothing to do with them. The elder said that the disciples of the Divine Dragon Valley must be united and help each other. You are just leaving us in the lurch. Chiu Hao looked warily at the red-faced young man and shouted at the disciples of the Divine Dragon Valley. United? Of course we will be united, but you are just ants on an uncivilized island. What right do you have to be united with us? Plus, you want to take the treasures and inheritances. What a joke. Yin Feng snickered. Yin Feng seemed to have a high status in the Divine Dragon Valley. The others looked at Chiu Hao and Chiu Yingying indifferently and didn't have any intention to help. Chapter 1426. Damn it. Chiu Hao cursed in his heart. Yin Feng and the others were despicable. They were trying to force Chiu Hao and Chiu Yingying to hand over the treasures and the succession. Chiu Yingying could be forced to hand over the treasure, but she had to be focused on receiving the inheritance. It would be very dangerous for her to be interrupted by force. Chiu Yingying would be destroyed. He would never agree to this. Even if he had to die. Chiu Hao stood in front of Chiu Yingying with a shield and a golden bell floating above his head. Kid, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The red-faced young man said coldly. Who do you want to fulfill your wish? At that moment, a clear voice could be heard in the hall. Whoosh. Before he finished speaking, there was a flash of light, and a figure broke through the encirclement and appeared beside Chiu Hao. His speed was shockingly fast and not many people saw how he appeared. Lu Ming. Chiu Hao blurted out instinctively. That's right. The person who had appeared was Lu Ming. He had been walking around aimlessly in the fortress. When he arrived, he saw the scene in the hall and appeared beside Chiu Hao with the wind origin skill. Yin Feng? Dragon God Valley. Lu Ming glanced at Yin Feng and the people of Dragon God Valley. The people of Dragon God Valley stood aside, clueless about what had happened. Lu Ming, it's like this? Chiu Hao briefly explained what had happened earlier and Lu Ming understood what was going on right away. Despicable. Lu Ming glanced at Yin Feng. This kid. Hehe, let's see how you're going to die this time. Yin Feng was stunned when he saw Lu Ming, then he smiled coldly. Before he had broken through to the Martial Emperor level, he was no match for Lu Ming. However, now that he had broken through to the Martial Emperor level, his spirit body had transformed into an inferior Earth spirit body. He was confident that he could crush Lu Ming. Kid, are you going to interfere? The red-faced young man looked at Lu Ming. What do you think? Get out of here if you know what's good for you. Lu Ming scolded coldly. Arrogant. You want to get involved in this matter alone? You're courting death. I'll kill you first. The red-faced youth shouted coldly and waved his hand. A blood-red sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. This person was a disciple of the Blood Demon House, one of the 13 top sects in the Tsang province. Clang. Lu Ming flicked his finger and deflected the blood-red sword light. At the same time, his body moved and he punched the red-faced young man. How could this be? The red-faced youth's sword light was sent flying by Lu Ming's flick of a finger. This startled him. The long sword in his hand flashed, and dozens of sharp blood-red sword lights burst out, stabbing towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's fist energy crushed through the red-faced youth's sword light. Then, the fist energy landed on the red-faced youth's body. The red-faced youth screamed as his body was sent flying. His body twitched a few times before he stopped moving. There was no trace of life left in him. Lu Ming's punch had scattered the spiritual deity within the red-faced young man's body. At the side, the other youths were shocked. Killing the red-faced youth with a single punch had shocked them. Who else wants to die? Lu Ming glanced at the other youths. The youths' faces changed. Let's attack together. I don't believe that we can't kill him with more than 10 of us working together. A youth growled. Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Ming appeared beside him and punched him. This person was dead. Who else? Lu Ming said calmly. Cold killing intent filled the air, causing the remaining youths' faces to turn pale. Innate spiritual body. This person must have an innate spiritual body. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such strong combat strength. They growled in their hearts, believing that Lu Ming had an innate spiritual body. Once an innate spiritual body broke through to the martial royal realm, the spiritual body would undergo a transformation. The worst-case scenario would be an inferior earth spiritual body. Their combat strength would be strong enough to crush martial artists of the same level. This guy, at the side, Yin Feng's eyes flashed coldly. Lu Ming had also broken through to the martial royal realm and his combat strength was extremely strong. However, Yin Feng did not take him seriously. He could also kill a martial artist of the same level with a single move. Get lost. Lu Ming scolded. The youths' faces turned pale, but they could only retreat helplessly. However, they only walked to the side and did not leave. They could tell that Yin Feng and his group were not on good terms with Chiu Hao and her sister. They would not give up so easily. They might be able to take advantage of the situation later. Why aren't you leaving? Lu Ming looked at Yin Feng and his group. Yin Feng's face darkened. He harumphed and said, Lu Ming, do you think you can keep these treasures and inheritances? You better give them to us. We'll help you bring them out and hand them over to the sect. Hand them over to the sect? We'll do it ourselves. You don't have to worry about it. Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, don't be so arrogant just because you have some strength. I'll see what makes you so confident that you can keep these treasures. Yin Feng stepped forward and a powerful aura spread out from his body. Loser, you're looking for a beating again? Lu Ming said in disdain. Times have changed. Lu Ming, today I'll let you see the difference between us. Yin Feng's body glowed with silver light. A dragon roar resounded throughout the hall. Silver light spread out from his body and turned into a silver dragon that coiled around his body. Silver dragon war body. A terrifying spiritual body. Silver dragon star fist. Yin Long yelled. His body was like a beam of silver light as he charged toward Lu Ming. The silver emperor spirit weapon glove on his fist exuded a dazzling glow. The fist force blasted out and the space shook violently. Boom. Lu Ming was very casual. He took a step forward and punched out. This punch did not have any abnormalities. It was ordinary. Dong. The two fists collided. It was like two meteors colliding. The terrifying sound waves caused the hall to rumble violently. Then a figure retreated continuously. It was Yin Feng. He retreated 7 steps. With each step, the hall rumbled as if it was shaking violently. Impossible. Yin Feng's eyes flashed with disbelief. After breaking through to the Emperor realm, his spiritual body reached the low-grade Earth spiritual body. It was incomparably powerful. With the addition of his domain and Emperor spirit weapon, he originally thought that he could crush Lu Ming. But now, with just one move, he was completely at a disadvantage. And from the looks of it, Lu Ming didn't use his full strength. Low-grade Earth spiritual body, you lowly ant, how can you cultivate a low-grade Earth spiritual body? Yin Feng roared. You think you're noble? Low-grade Earth spiritual body, you think you're great? I'll let you know that even if we're both low-grade Earth spiritual bodies, you're not worth mentioning in front of me. Lu Ming said coldly and took a step forward. Dong. With one step, the hall rumbled. Lu Ming came in front of Yin Feng. His body was like a dragon, twisting and swaying. A powerful force followed his arm and punched out. Explode for me. Yin Feng roared. The aura on his body began to surge wildly again. Chapter 1427. Yin Feng's aura was shocking. He had reached the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm. The Great Emperor's mystic realm had only been open for a dozen days and Yin Feng's cultivation had already reached the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm. However, it was not hard to understand. A genius like Yin Feng who had lived in the Yuan continent since he was young had reached the peak of the Martial Royal Realm. The reason why he had not broken through to the Martial Royal Realm was because he had been suppressing it to enter the Great Emperor's mystic realm. They had been suppressing it for too long and had accumulated too much. Once they broke through to the Martial Royal Realm, their cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. It was normal for them to reach the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm in a dozen days. It would not take long for them to break through to LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Yin Feng unleashed his full strength to fight against Lu Ming. Dong. The two fists collided and a bell rang. However, the result was the same. Although Yin Feng had unleashed his cultivation, he was still no match for Lu Ming. He was completely suppressed by Lu Ming and was forced to retreat. Lu Ming did not even use the chaotic realm. He only used the dragon god's battle body and the hell-suppressing skill. Although Lu Ming's spiritual body was the same as Yin Feng's, a low-tier spiritual body, Lu Ming had been trained by the world-refining Calamity Bell. There was a trace of chaotic qi in his body, which made Lu Ming's spiritual body stronger than an ordinary low-tier spiritual body. It was close to a medium-tier spiritual body. Boom. Boom. Lu Ming continued to throw out punches. He was like an invincible god of war, completely suppressing Yin Feng. Yin Feng's body shook violently. He kept retreating and spat out a mouthful of blood. The others were shocked. Yin Feng had an innate spiritual body. Now that he had evolved into a low-tier spiritual body, he was still no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming, the young man from the desolate island, was so strong that it was beyond their imagination. What? Is this all you've got? Is this the source of your confidence? Don't you want to show me the difference between us? Lu Ming mocked. Yin Feng let out a beast-like growl. He was too sullen. He had been suppressed by Lu Ming when he was at the Martial Royal Realm. And? Lu Ming spoke. At his spine, a blood-red light flashed. From his third bloodline, a strand of energy flowed into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body was covered in a layer of blood-red light, and a boundless killing intent enveloped Yin Feng. Being shrouded by the endless killing intent, Yin Feng shuddered violently. Boom. Borrowing the power of his third bloodline, Lu Ming's strength greatly increased. When his fist collided with Yin Feng's fist again, a cracking sound rang out from Yin Feng's arm. His arm was completely deformed. Yin Feng let out a blood-curdling scream as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Suppress. Lu Ming pressed down with his hand, and the phantom of the suppressing hell monument appeared on his arm, pressing down on Yin Feng. Bang. Yin Feng raised his arms and resisted with all his might. However, he was pressed down by Lu Ming's palm, causing Yin Feng to kneel down. With a thud, he knelt heavily on the ground in front of Lu Ming. Even if you want to beg for mercy, you don't need to be so courteous, do you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Arg, I'm going to kill you. Yin Feng's eyes were red. He let out an angry roar and struggled frantically. Last time he was stepped on by Lu Ming 9 times in a row. He had become the laughingstock of Dragon God Valley and was ridiculed by his competitors. Now he was kneeling in front of Lu Ming. This was a great humiliation that he would never be able to wash away in his lifetime. Even if he were to rise up in the future and rule the world, this incident would be a stain in his life. He was furious, he roared, and he couldn't wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. However, what welcomed him was Lu Ming's kick. Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked out. The sole of his foot was imprinted on Yin Feng's face again. Yin Feng let out a scream and slid out along the floor. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a step forward and chased after Yin Feng, wanting to step on him again. Enough! A voice came from the crowd of Dragon God Valley. Then a figure rushed out at an astonishing speed. Whoosh! 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 The figure instantly clawed out 9 times. 9 blood-red dragon claws clawed at Lu Ming. The claw wind whistled and its power was shocking. Lu Ming had a feeling that if he was hit by the dragon claws, he would be smashed to pieces. Lu Ming listened to the sound and struck out 9 times. His palms were covered by the chaotic domain and clashed with the 9 blood-red dragon claws. Bam! 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 After 9 consecutive explosions, Lu Ming's figure was stopped. The figure borrowed the force and floated back dozens of meters. Second-level martial royal realm. Lu Ming was shocked and looked at the other party. It was a young man in his 20s. He looked younger than Lu Ming and was very handsome. Furthermore, he had eye-catching blood-red hair that was tied up casually. You? Lu Ming's heart stirred as he recognized this person. There were 13 top sects and factions that had entered the Great Emperor Mystic Realm. There were many geniuses and experts. This was especially so for the local geniuses. They had received the best training since young and many of them had innate spiritual bodies. They were extremely powerful. However, there were still leaders among these people who suppressed the rest. The leader of Dragon God Valley was the person in front of him, Hiyu. Lu Ming had heard people talking about this on their way to the Great Emperor Mystic Realm. Therefore Lu Ming recognized this person. This person was indeed powerful. He had only entered the Great Emperor Mystic Realm for a short while and his cultivation had already broken through to the second-level martial royal realm. It was shocking. Hiyu, help me kill him. Help me kill this bastard. Yin Feng shouted hysterically. He was about to go crazy. Lu Ming, your battle strength is admirable. Let's fight another day. Let's go. Unexpectedly, Hiyu did not continue the battle. Instead, he retreated. Hiyu, what are you doing? Help me kill this bastard. Yin Feng shouted. Nonsense. Hiyu glanced at Yin Feng coldly before grabbing him and entering a path. The geniuses of Dragon God Valley exchanged glances with one another, before following Hiyu out of the place. After walking for a while, Hiyu, why didn't you kill that bastard and take the treasure? Yin Feng still did not give up and asked. Because even if I were to attack, I'm not confident that I can defeat this Lu Ming. Hiyu came to a stop and said in a serious tone. What? The people of Dragon God Valley, including Yin Feng, were stunned. After a while Yin Feng said, how is that possible? Your cultivation has already broken through to the second-layer martial royal realm, and your innate spiritual body is at the mid-tier earthly spiritual body. How is it possible that you can't defeat that kid? Hiyu frowned as if he was in deep thought. After a while, he let out a sigh and said, this Lu Ming is giving me a dangerous feeling. He did not use his full strength in the previous exchange. I have a feeling that if we were to fight to the death now, I would be the one to die. What? Yin Feng and the others were stunned once again. They found it hard to believe. Hiyu, the peerless genius of Dragon God Valley, believed that he was no match against Lu Ming. How was this possible? Chapter 1428. Let's go. Let's not provoke him in the great emperor's mystic realm for now. Once my cultivation improves, I'll have full confidence. He Yu said as he strode forward. Lu Ming watched as He Yu and the others left. He did not chase after them. He was not afraid of He Yu, but he was afraid of unnecessary trouble. Now Qiu Yingying was trying her best to receive the inheritance. If he fought with He Yu, it would cause too much of a commotion and affect Qiu Yingying's inheritance. Seeing that He Yu and the others had left, the onlookers did not dare to stay any longer. They all took to their heels and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only Qiu Yingying, Qiu Hao and Lu Ming were left in the hall. Lu Ming, you saved us again. Thank you. Qiu Hao walked to Lu Ming's side and cupped his fists at Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with gratitude. During this period of time, the siblings had been saved by Lu Ming many times. Otherwise they did not know what would have happened to them. He was naturally very grateful to Lu Ming. Lu Ming smiled and said, "There's no need to be so polite. We're friends, aren't we? Since I met you, do you want me to stand by and do nothing?" Lu Ming said it casually, but Qiu Hao was even more grateful. "By the way, Lu Ming, I obtained 2 sacred weapons here. You can have this shield." Qiu Hao handed the shield to Lu Ming. "Brother Qiu, this is your opportunity. Why are you giving it to me?" Lu Ming shook his head and smiled. Sacred weapons were very precious. To be honest, Lu Ming was also very tempted. However, this was Qiu Hao's opportunity. Lu Ming would naturally not steal it from someone else. "Lu Ming, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to keep these 2 sacred weapons. This golden bell is very compatible with me, but this shield is not very compatible with me. Perhaps it's more suitable for you." Qiu Hao insisted on giving the shield to Lu Ming. Seeing Qiu Hao like this, Lu Ming could only take the shield. "It's so heavy." Grabbing the shield, Zhang Xian felt a slight weight on his palm. Lu Ming had cultivated the Dragon God battle body and was extremely strong. However, this shield still made him feel slightly heavy. His weight was astonishing. The shield exuded a mysterious fluctuation, which was somewhat similar to the air-frozen bead and thunder cauldron that Lu Ming had obtained. A saint artifact shield is definitely a rare treasure. Lu Ming also liked it a little. If he took this shield out, it would be invaluable. Immediately, Lu Ming and Qiu Hao sat cross-legged on either side of Qiu Yingying and began to refine their respective saint weapons. True essence poured into the shield, and the shield hummed lightly, emitting a buzzing sound as it emitted a brilliant light. Not long after, the shield shrank rapidly and flew into Lu Ming's forehead, disappearing without a trace. The shield could be considered to be at the initial stage of refinement. Of course, it was impossible for Lu Ming to completely refine the shield, nor was it possible for him to unleash the full power of the shield. This was a saint weapon. Just like the Thunder Cauldron, Lu Ming had the Thunder Cauldron for many years, but he could only unleash a small portion of its power. The difference in their cultivation was too great. Lu Ming stood up and saw that Qiu Hao was still refining the golden bell. The golden bell floated above Qiu Hao's head, emitting rays of light that enveloped Qiu Hao. After a while, the golden bell turned into a beam of golden light and disappeared into Qiu Hao's forehead. He had also begun to refine it. Buzz. At this moment, a powerful fluctuation came from Qiu Yingying's body. So powerful. Facing this fluctuation, Lu Ming felt like he was facing a Saint Realm expert. The terrifying pressure made him feel like he was about to suffocate. However, as soon as the fluctuation came out, it quickly retracted into Qiu Yingying's body and disappeared. At this moment, Qiu Yingying opened her eyes. "Yingying, did you succeed?" Qiu Hao looked at Qiu Yingying expectantly. "Yes." Qiu Yingying nodded. Qiu Hao was overjoyed. "Lu Ming, thank you for saving me." Qiu Yingying bowed to Lu Ming. Although she had been receiving the inheritance, she still had a vague sense of what was happening in the outside world. She knew that Lu Ming had saved them. Otherwise, Qiu Yingying would have been lucky if she could keep her life, let alone receive the inheritance. "You're welcome." "Yingying, why were you suddenly brought in? What happened?" Lu Ming asked curiously. "It's that jade pendant. When I first entered the Great Emperor's mystic realm, I got it by accident. I didn't know what it was for, so I kept it with me. I didn't expect it to be the key to the inheritance. I received the inheritance with this jade pendant." Qiu Yingying said. Lu Ming sighed. This was an opportunity. "Yingying, did you get any useful information from the inheritance?" Qiu Hao asked curiously. "I haven't fully digested the inheritance. I just received it, so I don't know much. I only know that it's the inheritance of an absolute saint senior." Qiu Yingying said. "Absolute saint." Lu Ming and Qiu Hao were shocked. An absolute saint was close to becoming a great emperor. They were happy for Qiu Yingying to receive the inheritance of an absolute saint. However, I received an important piece of information from the inheritance. It's about Emperor Tsong. It said that 7 types of inheritances will appear. Once 7 rainbow bridges break through the void, Emperor Tsong's palace will appear. Qiu Yingying said. 7 types of inheritances? That's easy to understand. Yingying, you're one of them. But what do you mean by 7 rainbow bridges? Lu Ming frowned. Qiu Yingying shook her head, indicating that she had no idea. Let's go. Let's get out of here first. I'm afraid that the other places have already been searched, Lu Ming said. Immediately the 3 of them headed out. After making many turns, the 3 of them exited the fortress. Bus. As soon as the 3 of them got out of the fortress, the entire fortress shook violently. Rays of light shone from above. Finally, under everyone's shocked gazes, the light gathered on the fortress, forming an incomparably huge rainbow. It pierced through the void and extended to an unknown place, disappearing into the vast sky. Rainbow Bridge. That's the Rainbow Bridge. Zhou Hao exclaimed. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Rainbow Bridge. Now they understood. It seemed that there were 7 types of inheritances in this secret realm. Every time someone received an inheritance, a rainbow bridge would be activated that led to the depths of the void. When the 7 rainbow bridges converged, Emperor Tsong's palace would appear. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fortress shook and many young people in the fortress flew out. They looked at the rainbow bridge in the sky in confusion. What's going on? Many people looked at each other. Let's go and find the next inheritance, Lu Ming said. They naturally would not explain it to others. The 3 of them flew into the sky and left the place. Whoosh. Not long after they flew out, a rainbow light suddenly broke through the void in the distance. Rainbow Bridge. Another rainbow bridge. Obviously, someone had received the inheritance. One end of the 2 rainbow bridges broke through the void in the same direction. Chapter 1429. Everyone in the great emperor's mystic realm began to search for the inheritances frantically. The next inheritance must be mine. I must get the next inheritance. Many youths looked determined and confident. Especially the leaders of the 13 sections. Their eyes shone brightly. These leaders were only the leaders of this batch who had entered the mystic realm. They were not the leaders of the younger generation in their sections. Many of the younger generation in the various sects had already broken through to the martial emperor realm. Most of the geniuses were in the martial emperor realm. Some of them were even more talented than them. The great emperor's mystic realm was their opportunity. If they could obtain an inheritance, they would be able to compete with the younger generation in the future. Lu Ming, Qiu Yingying, and Zhou Hao flew aimlessly. They did not have any clues to find the inheritance. They could only rely on luck. Whoosh, whoosh. In front of them, a few rays of light were flying in the same direction. The 3 of them did not pay much attention to it. However, from time to time, they would see rays of light flying in the same direction. The 3 of them were curious. At that moment, another figure flew past. Lu Ming stopped him. What a coincidence. This person was also a disciple of the divine Dragon Valley. There might be an inheritance in front of us. This Dragon God Valley disciple only left behind a sentence and hurriedly left. An inheritance? The 3 of their eyes lit up. It seemed that another person had found an inheritance. Let's go and take a look, Lu Ming said. The 3 of them flew in that direction. After flying for more than an hour, the terrain gradually became desolate. Although the terrain was flat, there was no vegetation. The 3 of them continued to fly. There's someone in front. Qiu Yingying pointed ahead. There was a person lying there motionless. The 3 of them flew over and found that the person was dead. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. How did this person die? There's no wound. Zhou Hao checked and said. It's in his dantian. Lu Ming discovered an extremely tiny hole in the clothes of this person's dantian. After unbuttoning this person's clothes, he discovered that there was also an extremely tiny hole in this person's dantian. It seemed to have been pierced by a sharp weapon. It was a fatal blow. Even the spirit god did not manage to escape. The 3 of them checked it out and continued forward. However, not long after, the 3 of them stopped again. That was because this time they saw several corpses at once. After examining them, they found that the cause of death for each of the corpses was the same. Their dantian had been pierced by a sharp weapon, and they were killed with a single strike. Judging from their lingering auras, these people should be Jizuan realm cultivators. The 3 of them continued on their journey, but soon the 3 of them were shocked. Corpses. The road was littered with corpses. In one place there were more than 1,000 corpses. Each corpse had died in the same way. Their dantians were all pierced. Among these people, some were even rulers. As they moved forward, they saw even more corpses. In total, there were more than 5,000 corpses. All of these people were geniuses. Any single one of them would be a top existence if they were to be placed in the continent of God. But now they were all dead without a single sound. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The Yuan continent was indeed many times more dangerous than the godly ruins. Where is this place? Why is it so evil? Qiu Yingying's face turned pale. What kind of existence can kill so many people? Moreover, their wounds are all the same. This is unbelievable. Qiu Hao's heart was pounding. Such a scene was too evil. Anyone would be scared. Boom. Suddenly, a violent explosion was heard in front of them. A figure rushed into the sky and then swooped down. Get lost, get lost. The figure roared. The battle saber in his hand slashed out rays of saber light in all directions. Its power was extremely shocking. He's so powerful. He's not weaker than Yin Feng. Qiu Yingying exclaimed. Such a powerful figure seemed to be in mortal danger at this moment. He was killing and slashing out dazzling saber light. Ding, ding. When he slashed out with his saber light, there was a clanking sound in the air. That's a type of butterfly. Qiu Yingying suddenly pointed ahead and exclaimed. At the same time, Lu Ming and Qiu Hao also saw it. It was a type of butterfly that was almost transparent. It was shockingly fast. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see it. Moreover, this butterfly had two sharp thorns on its tail that looked like two tiny swords. The swordtail disc. Those three words appeared in Lu Ming's mind. The swordtail disc was an extremely terrifying insect. These ferocious insects were transparent, and their speed was astonishing. They came and went without a trace. Moreover, there were two sword-like spikes on their tails. These spikes had terrifying attack power and penetrating power. Moreover, they were extremely fast. Ordinary people would be pierced by the spikes before they could even discover them, dying miserably on the spot. That was how the swordtail disc got its name. Lu Ming finally knew how those people died. They were killed by the swordtail disc. At this moment, the person in front of them was surrounded by hundreds of swordtail discs. He tried his best to defend himself. When he saw Lu Ming and the others, his eyes lit up and he rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. This guy wants to drag us down with him, Qiu Hao said. A golden bell appeared above his head and scattered a light screen that enveloped him. On Qiu Yingying's body, a feather robe emitted light and covered her. Go back. Lu Ming said coldly and threw a punch at the young man. The terrifying fist force drowned the young man. How dare you? The young man shouted angrily. Lu Ming curled his lips. This person wanted to drag them down with him, but Lu Ming didn't dare to fight back? Boom. The young man had no choice but to slash with his saber. It hit Lu Ming's fist force and sent the young man flying with a loud bang. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the thorns on the swordtail disc stabbed a few small holes in the young man's body. Fortunately, they didn't hit any vital parts. The young man soared into the sky and flew into the distance. His voice came from afar. Just you wait. Then he disappeared into the horizon. A group of swordtail discs chased after him. However, the young man had successfully dragged Lu Ming and the others down with him. At least half of the swordtail discs that were attacking the young man were attacking Lu Ming and the others. Whoosh, whoosh. A sharp sound broke through the air as hundreds of thorns pierced toward Lu Ming and the others. Buzz. Lu Ming activated the chaotic domain. The chaotic domain spread out and enveloped all the swordtail discs. Then Lu Ming pressed down with one hand and the terrifying power of the chaotic domain crushed toward the swordtail discs. The chaotic domain was millions of pounds heavy. Under the heavy pressure, the pressure was astonishing. Chapter 1430. Looks like it's not safe ahead. I'm afraid there will be a large number of swordtail discs. Yingying brother Qiu? Lu Ming looked at Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. His meaning was clear. It was too dangerous to continue. Given Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao's strength, they would be in danger. Lu Ming, big brother, and I will wait for you outside. Qiu Yingying was very smart and said quickly. She knew that if she and Qiu Hao followed Lu Ming, they would be a burden to Lu Ming. Lu Ming could only move freely if he was alone. Okay, wait for me outside. Lu Ming nodded. Lu Ming, be careful. Qiu Yingying said worriedly. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled and flew away. Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao went back the way they came and left. Whoosh. Lu Ming was alone. His speed suddenly increased. Like a phantom, he flashed across the void. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After Lu Ming flew for a while, hundreds of sword-tail discs attacked Lu Ming. It was very sudden and too fast. An ordinary martial king would not be able to survive such an attack. However, Lu Ming was not an ordinary martial king. The chaotic territory covered his body and the sword-tailed disc spikes could not break through Lu Ming's chaotic territory. The chaotic territory shook and the spikes were all shattered. Boom. Then Lu Ming threw a punch and the chaotic domain crushed forward. Those sword-tailed discs exploded under the powerful fist force. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to move forward. Along the way, Lu Ming encountered several waves of attacks. However, Lu Ming rushed past them and shattered them in the air. Soon, a forest appeared in front of him. That is, Lu Ming looked into the distance. The forest covered a large area. In the center of the forest, there was a tall tower in the shape of a sword. It looked like a divine sword that pierced the sky. Even from a distance one could see it. Is that the land of inheritance? Lu Ming's heart stirred. Scram. Not far away a person was charging forward. This person was very strong and should be someone with an innate spirit body. However, at this moment, a large group of sword-tailed discs flew out from the forest below and attacked this person. This person tried his best to attack, but he couldn't break through the sword-tailed disc's obstruction at all. Several large holes were pierced into his body and he almost died here. He could only retreat in a sorry state. Lu Ming looked around and found that there were many corpses in the forest. Because they all wanted to charge through this forest and were killed by the sword-tailed disc. Presumably this forest was the lair of the sword-tailed disc. Who knew how many sword-tailed discs resided here? In order to reach the sword pagoda, one had to pass through this forest. Whoosh, whoosh. At this time, another group of sword-tailed discs flew out towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming pressed forward with one hand, and the chaotic field spread out and enveloped the group of sword-tailed discs. Then with a shake, the sword-tailed discs were all killed and fell into the forest like raindrops. Lu Ming smiled faintly and stepped forward, heading towards the sword pagoda. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a cold shout sounded, and then two rainbow lights flashed towards Lu Ming. The rainbow lights faded and two figures appeared. It's you. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. One of them was the young man who had been attacked by the sword-tailed discs and then led the sword-tailed discs to Lu Ming and Xiaoying. Lu Ming didn't go looking for him, but he appeared on his own. The other person's aura was also very strong. Obviously, he was a prodigy of the same level as this person. Your field is very mysterious. It can actually suppress the sword-tailed discs. No wonder you didn't die. Now take the two of us there. The young man who had dragged Lu Ming and Xiao Ying into the water said coldly. Is there something wrong with your head? Lu Ming sneered. What did you say? The young man's eyes turned cold. You framed me and wanted to drag me into the water to help you escape. Now you're asking me to take you there? Is there something wrong with your head? Lu Ming continued. If you don't take me there, you'll die now. The young man said, and his body was filled with cold murderous intent. Is that so? Then, you can go to hell. As soon as Lu Ming finished speaking, he threw out a punch. The chaotic field was driven by Lu Ming's fist force, and it crushed towards the young man. How dare you make a move? You're courting death. No. The young man began to yell, but then he realized that Lu Ming's fist force was unbelievably powerful. He exerted all his strength and slashed with his saber, but under Lu Ming's fist force, the saber light was shattered and the fist force hit him directly. Bam! Half of his body exploded. Although his combat strength was not weaker than Yin Feng's, Lu Ming did not use the chaotic field when he fought with Yin Feng previously. Now that he used the chaotic field, it was simply crushing. Swoosh! Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed half of the young man's body. Spare me, the young man was not dead yet and he begged for mercy in horror. It's too late to beg for mercy now. Lu Ming swung his hand and threw half of the young man's body into the forest. Suddenly, a dense sword-tailed disc flew out from the forest. No, the young man yelled. The next moment, the sword-tailed disc engulfed him, and his body was pierced into a hornet's nest, and he died on the spot. Did I say you could leave? Lu Ming took a step forward and his body was like a stream of light. The other young man was almost scared to death when he saw Lu Ming's combat strength. He fled in horror. However, Lu Ming's speed was so fast that he caught up with him in a few breaths. The result was already determined. With one move, the young man was half dead. Lu Ming did the same and threw the severely injured young man into the forest, where he was pierced by thousands of arrows. Then Lu Ming continued to move forward. In the forest, a dense sword-tailed disc rushed out and pounced on Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic field and used the wind origin technique. His entire body seemed to have turned into a long spear and rushed through. Wherever Lu Ming passed by, the sword-tail discs would explode one after another. Amidst the densely packed sword-tail discs, a passageway was created. The sword-tail disc could not stop Lu Ming in the slightest. Soon, Lu Ming successfully rushed through the forest and approached the sword pagoda. Strangely, as soon as he rushed through the forest, the sword-tail disc stopped chasing and all retreated. Boom! Clang! Not far from the sword pagoda, there was a terrifying rumble. Someone was fighting. Get lost, the Emperor Domain fruit is mine. You want to get the Emperor Domain fruit? Dream on. Die for me. Sword light, saber light, and palm prints surged. In that area there were 4 figures fighting in a chaotic battle. These 4 people's combat strength was very shocking, and they were even stronger than Yin Feng. No wonder they could break through the sword-tail disc's encirclement and rush here. Emperor Domain fruit. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He looked around and found 3 fruit trees. On each tree there was a fruit. Each fruit was sparkling and resplendent, and there was the aura of the great Tao lingering around it. It's really the Emperor Domain fruit. Chapter 1431. The Royal Region fruit was a rare treasure. It was said that a low-level martial royal realm martial artist could raise his cultivation by 1 level after consuming the Royal Region fruit. Even a high-level martial royal realm martial artist would benefit greatly from consuming the Royal Region fruit, as it could help him break through his bottleneck. If a martial royal realm martial artist wanted to raise his cultivation, he would first have to raise his realm, then cultivate his true origin and condense his spiritual body. However, the Royal Region fruit could raise one's cultivation by 1 level. The most amazing thing was that it would be useful for martial artists regardless of their realm. This kind of treasure was simply heaven-defying. It was no wonder that these people were fighting over it. The 3 Royal Region fruits are mine. Lu Ming moved and pounced toward the Royal Region fruits. The chaotic realm that he cultivated was 10 times or even 100 times more difficult than an ordinary realm. However, if he had the Royal Region fruits, how much effort and time could he save? Such a rare treasure was hard to come by. Since Lu Ming had come across it, he would not give it up. You're courting death. Trying to snatch the Royal Region fruits? The 4 people who were fighting noticed Lu Ming and roared furiously. They attacked Lu Ming at the same time. The 4 people's combat strength was shocking, surpassing Yin Feng and the others. Even Lu Ming could not ignore the 4 people's furious attacks. Boom, 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 boom. Lu Ming threw out 4 punches in a row and destroyed the 4 people's attacks. How powerful! The 4 people were shocked when they saw Lu Ming destroy their attacks with just a punch. We are no match for this person's combat strength alone. If he gets the Royal Region fruits, we will have no chance at all. One of the young men said. That's right. Why don't we team up and kill this person before fighting for the Royal Region fruits? All right. That's what I was thinking. The figures of the 4 young men flashed and surrounded Lu Ming in the middle. A powerful steam engine was emitted and locked onto Lu Ming. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted and formed a terrifying sound wave that attacked one of the young men in front of him. At the same time, he threw a punch at the young man in front of him. If he wanted to fight, he had to focus on one of them. The young man's expression changed. He didn't expect that Lu Ming would dare to make the first move when facing the 4 of them. Sword chi bloomed in his hand, and a sharp sword chi burst out, breaking apart the blast of air that Lu Ming spat out. However, when his sword slashed towards Lu Ming's fist, his expression changed greatly. The primal chaos domain pressed down. His sword light was like a willow leaf in the wind, swaying rapidly as if it would collapse at any moment. At this moment, the other 3 people also made their move. A saber light, a palm print, and a spear light bombarded Lu Ming at the same time. But Lu Ming pretended not to see it. The primal chaos domain covered Lu Ming's entire body. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 attacks landed on the primal chaos domain. The primal chaos domain shook violently, but it did not break. Their expressions changed greatly. What kind of domain is this? Why is it so terrifying? The 3 of them had the same thought in their minds. The primal chaos domain was a legendary domain. Not many people could recognize it. Moreover, they never thought that there would be someone in this world who could cultivate the primal chaos domain. The 3 people's attacks did not break the primal chaos domain, but Lu Ming's attack continued to crush it. Bang! The young man's sword light finally couldn't hold on and collapsed. The primal chaos domain erupted with a terrifying fist force. The young man's body shook violently, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His body flew out like a cannonball. Whoosh! Then Lu Ming's figure flashed, dodging the attacks of the other 3 people. Cold killing intent enveloped the other 3 people. At this moment, the sword pagoda not far away emitted a buzzing sound, and the door at the bottom of the pagoda suddenly opened. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, two streaks of sword light flew toward the sword pagoda from another direction and rushed into the gate at an extremely fast speed. The sword pagoda opened and two experts rushed in. Buzz. At this moment, Lu Ming's third bloodline appeared, turning into a blood-red spear. Lu Ming grabbed it. Total annihilation. The blood-red spear swept out, containing the terrifying power of the Primal Chaos Domain and the Primal Chaos Domain. Bang, bang, bang. The three young men were sent flying by Lu Ming like sandbags. They flew thousands of meters away, spitting out mouthfuls of blood as they looked at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming's battle strength was too terrifying. He was almost invincible among those of the same level. After sending the three young men flying with one move, Lu Ming's figure flashed, and he pounced on the Emperor Domain fruit. This time, the three young men did not dare to stop him. They watched as Lu Ming plucked the Emperor Domain fruit and put it away. After plucking the Emperor Domain fruit, Lu Ming did not stop. He rushed into the sword pagoda and rushed in through the door at the bottom. Who is this person? What terrifying battle strength. I'm afraid he's comparable to the leaders of the 13 sects. Indeed, but the two sword lights just now were the two leaders, Luo Xiang from the Life and Death Sword faction and Wang Xiao from the Nine Heaven Sword sect. This is interesting. 3 leaders fighting for the inheritance. This is going to be interesting. Let's go take a look. Following that, the few young men also flew toward the sword pagoda. As soon as Lu Ming flew into the sword pagoda, he found that the sword pagoda was filled with sharp sword chi. Sword chi slashed toward him. It was the aftermath of the sword chi. In the sword pagoda there were 2 people fighting fiercely. Sword chi filled the entire sword pagoda. What powerful battle strength. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Of the 2 young men, one was wearing an ordinary black robe. He was handsome and there was a sword mark between his eyebrows. It seemed like a divine sword would fly out at any time. The other person was wearing a robe with clouds. He was tall and had a wild aura. Both of them were sword cultivators and used long swords. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant the 2 of them had exchanged dozens of blows. Their long swords collided and sword chi was rampant. Both of their cultivations were at rank 2 martial royal realm, which was comparable to Hiyu, the leader of the Divine Dragon Valley. Luo Xiang, this inheritance is mine. The young man in the robe said coldly. Wang Xiao, the inheritance is not something you can talk about. Luo Xiang replied coldly. At that moment the 2 of them saw Lu Ming. However, their eyes were cold and they did not take Lu Ming seriously at all. You guys can continue fighting. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He soared into the sky and dashed toward the top of the sword pagoda. There was no staircase in the sword pagoda. The center was empty and led to the top. If one wanted to go up, they would have to rush up from the center. Get lost. As soon as Lu Ming rushed up, Wang Zhao's eyes turned cold and a sword light slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming struck out with his palm and shattered the sword light. He did not stop and continued to move upward. Not bad. Wang Zhao's eyes turned cold. He gave up on Luo Xiang and became one with his sword. He turned into a sword light and shot up to the sky, stabbing toward Lu Ming from below. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted coldly. He used the 9 dragon sky-stomping steps and took 9 steps in a row. Chapter 1432. Wang Zhao's expression changed abruptly. His body fell down involuntarily. Swoosh. At this moment Luo Xiang caught up with Lu Ming. He soared into the sky and chased after Lu Ming. With the help of Wang Zhao's power, Lu Ming's body swayed and he dashed to the highest floor in an instant. With a twist of his body and a stomp of his feet, Lu Ming moved dozens of meters horizontally and landed on the highest floor. Then Luo Xiang flew up. Swoosh. After Luo Xiang it was Wang Xiao. He landed on the ground and looked at Lu Ming gloomily. As the leader of the 9 Heaven Sword sect in the Mystic Realm this time, he was actually kicked down by Lu Ming, an unknown person. This made his expression turn ugly. At that moment, Lu Ming's attention was attracted by something in front of him. There were 3 balls of light floating in the air in front of him. In one of the balls of light, there was a book that looked like it was made of gold. Strangely, there was a human figure on the book's surface, dancing with a sword. It was very mysterious. It was a martial technique, a sword principle martial technique. In the second ball of light there was a sword. The sword's body was snow white. With one look, one could feel a terrifying sword radiance. A sacred weapon. This sword was definitely a powerful sacred weapon. In the third ball of light it was much simpler. There were only about 100 fist-sized stones. The heavenly lost stone. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Almost at the same time the three of them moved. Lu Ming pounced on the heavenly lost stone. To Lu Ming the sword principle martial technique was useless to him. He was not a sword cultivator and did not practice the sword. Although the sacred weapon was precious, it was not very useful to him. If he took it out he would just sell it. These were not as attractive to him as the heavenly lost stone. The heavenly lost stone was the foundation of increasing one's strength. As long as one had strength, one would not be afraid of not having treasures. Lu Ming pounced on the heavenly lost stone, Luo Xiang pounced on the sword principle martial technique, and Wang Xiao pounced on the sacred weapon. Bam! Lu Ming grabbed the ball of light. The ball of light shook but was not broken. It really has a defensive function. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Next, the chaos domain covered Lu Ming's palm. Circulating the suppressing hell heavenly skill, he slammed his palm into the ball of light. The ball of light shook violently. Although it didn't break apart, the light of the ball of light dimmed a little. Continue. Lu Ming unleashed a barrage of attacks. The primal chaos domain combined with the hell-suppressing heaven skill was extremely powerful. The ball of light constantly shook and flickered. In less than 10 breaths, Lu Ming had already sent out over 100 attacks. Finally, the ball of light collapsed into motes of light and disappeared. Lu Ming reached out and collected over 100 heavenly Dao stones into his storage ring. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. In total, he had obtained more than 200 heavenly Dao stones. The heavenly Dao stones were extremely precious. Even a sage realm expert would want to look for them. Lu Ming's trip to the great emperor's mystic realm had not been in vain. After keeping the heavenly Dao stones, he looked around and realized that Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao had yet to break apart the ball of light. Sword light burst out from their hands and slashed at the ball of light. The ball of light shook and its light dimmed. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. His body moved and pounced towards the ball of light that Wang Xiao was in. He slammed his palm out and the ball of light shook violently. "What are you doing?" Wang Xiao shouted angrily. Lu Ming sneered. He couldn't be bothered with him and slammed his palm out again. "Brat, you dare to fight with me for the sacred weapon? You're courting death." Wang Xiao shouted angrily. The sword light in his hand flashed and slashed towards Lu Ming. Bam! Lu Ming kicked out. This kick was also a combination of the hell-suppressing heaven skill and the primal chaos domain. Wang Xiao's sword light was scattered. His body swayed slightly and he took 2 steps back. Bam! Lu Ming slammed his palm on the ball of light again. With a poof, the ball of light was destroyed. Lu Ming grabbed the sacred weapon and kept it in his storage ring. "Brat, hand over the sacred weapon." Wang Xiao let out a furious roar and pounced on Lu Ming. His sword aura surged toward Lu Ming like rainbows. "You want the sacred weapon? Let's see if you have the ability." Lu Ming sneered. When Lu Ming entered, Wang Xiao was the first to attack him. Now that he had the chance to snatch a sacred weapon, how could Lu Ming be polite? His palm was like a knife as he slashed down continuously. Under Lu Ming's palm, Wang Xiao's sword light was destroyed. Damn it! Wang Xiao was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. However, he was shocked to find that he could not do anything to Lu Ming. In fact, Lu Ming's attack was stronger than his. He was suppressed by Lu Ming. Swoosh, swoosh. Lu Ming waved his palm. With the help of the primal chaos domain, he slashed out 12 times in an instant. It was as if 12 mountains were pressing down on Wang Xiao. Wang Xiao raised his cultivation to the peak of LV2 martial royal realm. Sword light burst out, trying to break out of the mountains. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in all directions as the sword chi was destroyed. Wang Xiao used all his strength and finally broke through a gap. He rushed out of Lu Ming's attack range and retreated far away. He felt the blood in his body churning as he looked at Lu Ming with a grave expression. At the same time, Luo Xiang also broke through the ball of light and put away the sword principle manual. Damn it! Wang Xiao was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. Originally, the 3 of them had 3 treasures. However, in the end, Lu Ming got 2 of them and he did not get a share. That was a holy weapon. If he could refine it, his combat strength would definitely increase greatly. Unfortunately, it had fallen into Lu Ming's hands. He stared at Lu Ming viciously. "What? Do you want to die?" Lu Ming glanced at Wang Xiao, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Buzz. At that moment, a spot of light suddenly lit up in front of the 3 of them. The spot of light was dazzling and slowly, a small sword appeared. The small sword was only the size of a palm, but it was dazzling. The light was like tiny swords that spread out in all directions. Inheritance. The 3 of them were shocked. Their eyes shone with a fiery light. Almost at the same time, the three of them moved and pounced on the light sword. However, in the next moment their faces changed. They pushed forward with their palms, and then the three of them stepped back together. What a strong pressure. What a strong sword chi. Lu Ming's eyes were a little solemn. When he rushed out just now, he felt the powerful sword chi from the light sword as if it was going to tear him apart. If he had not blocked it in time, he would have been injured. Presumably, Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao were in the same situation. It seemed that it was not that easy to get the light sword. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic domain and walked forward step by step. A layer of ripples appeared in the chaotic domain. That was because it was being attacked. Small sword chi was densely packed and endless, constantly stabbing the chaotic domain. Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao also stepped forward. Of course, they were also being attacked and were trying their best to resist. The speed of the three of them became very slow. However, Lu Ming covered his body with the chaotic domain and walked forward step by step firmly. His speed was still faster than Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao. Chapter 1433. Lu Ming was a few meters ahead, which made Luo Xiang's eyes flash. As for Wang Xiao, he was furious as he gritted his teeth and charged forward. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Four figures rushed up from the bottom of the sword pagoda. They were the four youths who fought with Lu Ming for the Emperor Region fruit. It's the inheritance. The sword pagoda's inheritance. When they saw the light sword, their eyes flashed with greed as they stepped forward. But at the same time they were attacked by the sword chi and their speed was slower than a snail. The power of the sword chi is getting stronger. Lu Ming's face turned serious. The closer they got to the light sword, the stronger the pressure and the power of the sword chi. The ripples on the chaotic domain became more intense. Boom. Lu Ming used offense as defense and began to use the hell-suppressing heaven skill to break the sword chi. This way it was better. Lu Ming's speed suddenly increased. Seeing this, Luo Xiang and Wang Xiao also began to attack. Sword chi burst out from their hands and collided with the sword chi that pierced towards them. Dense collision sounds rang out in the air. But their speed was still inferior to Lu Ming's. The light sword was not far from them. In a short while, Lu Ming was already close to the light sword. He was less than a meter away from the light sword. He could reach out and grab it. At this point, the power of the sword chi light had reached an astonishing level. Damn it, no. Wang Xiao roared in his heart. Seeing that the inheritance was about to be taken by Lu Ming, he was extremely unwilling. He tried his best to move forward, but it was impossible for him to get close to the light sword. Lu Ming did not hesitate. His palm covered with the chaotic domain, he grabbed the light sword and successfully grabbed it. Buzz. At this moment, the light sword trembled slightly and shone brightly. A terrifying sword chi burst out. Lu Ming's face changed. He felt that the chaotic domain on his palm could not withstand it and was about to shatter. A terrifying sword chi broke through Lu Ming's palm and blasted towards Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming's body involuntarily retreated after being hit by the sword chi. He slid along the ground for dozens of meters. He had failed. The lightsaber did not acknowledge him. Lu Ming shook his head and smiled, not too surprised. The inheritance here was obviously a sword Dao inheritance. Since he did not cultivate the sword, it was normal for him to be rejected by the light sword. Previously he had only wanted to give it a try. Even if he could not obtain the inheritance, Lu Ming could be considered to have returned from a fruitful journey. The 3 Emperor Domain fruits and more than 100 heavenly Dao stones were all extremely useful to Lu Ming. Of course, there was also a Saint Weapon battle sword which was also very valuable. Seeing Lu Ming being pushed back by the light sword, Wang Xiao laughed in his heart and urged the rear to charge forward. He and Luo Xiang approached the sword of light at almost the same time. Luo Xiang, you want to compete with me? Dream on. A small squirrel appeared in Wang Xiao's hand. Sword rat. Luo Xiang's expression changed. Go attack him. Wang Xiao stared at Luo Xiang. Squeak squeak, the squirrel squeaked and revealed a look of fear. Wang Xiao, this place is filled with powerful sword chi. By asking the sword rat to attack me, you are asking it to die. Luo Xiang said. Hurry up and attack. Otherwise I will kill you right now. Wang Xiao could not be bothered with Luo Xiang's words as he stared at the sword rat with murderous intent. Squeak squeak. The sword rat was so frightened that its body trembled. It then nodded as a look of sorrow flashed across its eyes. With a swoosh it charged towards Luo Xiang. At this moment Luo Xiang was the same as Wang Xiao. He needed to use all his strength to resist the sword chi and could not free himself to attack. Bang! The sword rat bombarded Luo Xiang's protective True Yuan and domain, causing Luo Xiang's body to tremble as he retreated. But that sword rat was also exposed to the endless sword chi. The sword rat wailed and turned into ashes under the sword chi. Aha, I finally seized the opportunity. Wang Xiao laughed and grabbed the lightsaber. The inheritance is mine. Wang Xiao grabbed the lightsaber with excitement in his eyes. He naturally saw that Lu Ming was repelled by the lightsaber because Lu Ming was not a sword cultivator and was naturally unable to obtain the approval of the lightsaber. But he was a pure sword cultivator who had practiced the sword since he was young and was a famous genius in the Nine Heaven Sword sect. How could he not obtain the approval of the lightsaber? But in the next moment, his eyes suddenly opened wide. The lightsaber buzzed for a moment as a violent force erupted. Wang Xiao was also sent flying like Lu Ming. No, how could this be? Wang Xiao was unable to believe it and let out a furious roar. He was also rejected by the lightsaber. How could this be? Sword cultivators should be brave, persistent, decisive, persistent, sharp, and daring to act. But you are despicable and shameless. Wang Xiao, you are not worthy of using a sword. Luo Xiang's indifferent voice sounded out. Bang, bang. Subsequently, Luo Xiang took a few steps forward and arrived before the lightsaber. Without the slightest hesitation, he grabbed the lightsaber. When Luo Xiang grabbed the lightsaber was unusually quiet. The powerful sword chi vanished without a trace in an instant, and it was like a docile pet. Luo Xiang has obtained the approval of the lightsaber. A young man said. Impossible, the inheritance is mine. Wang Xiao could not accept this fact. He roared angrily and pounced at Luo Xiang. Buzz. The lightsaber shook and released a powerful sword chi that sent Wang Xiao flying. Then the lightsaber flashed and disappeared into the space between Luo Xiang's eyebrows. Whoosh! Luo Xiang jumped down from the sword pagoda and rushed out. At this moment, the sword pagoda began to shake. Let's go. Lu Ming jumped down from the sword pagoda and rushed out of the pagoda. The others also rushed out of the pagoda one by one, including Wang Xiao. However, his face was extremely gloomy. Buzz! The sword pagoda shook. Then a rainbow bridge broke through the sky and rushed into the boundless void, joining the other two rainbow bridges. In the distance, a sword light flashed and flew into the distance. It was Luo Xiang. He had just obtained the inheritance and needed time to digest it. Luo Xiang, don't even think about obtaining the sword principal inheritance. Wang Zhao's eyes flashed coldly. He turned into a sword light and chased after Luo Xiang. Lu Ming shook his head. Wang Xiao was a narrow-minded person. No wonder he could not obtain the sword principal inheritance. He was far inferior compared to Luo Xiang. Lu Ming did not care about this matter and stepped out. Soon, Lu Ming rushed out of the sword-tailed disc and returned to where he came from. Lu Ming did not care much about the inheritance here. He had the inheritance of the 9 dragons and the Chaos Emperor. The 9 dragons and the Chaos Emperor were the pinnacle experts in the world. Even among the great emperors, they were at the peak. Lu Ming did not care about these small inheritances at all. Even if he obtained them, they would not be of much use to Lu Ming. Lu Ming wanted more treasures, such as the Heavenly Lost Stone. These were of great use to Lu Ming. Soon Lu Ming found Qiu Yingying and Qiu Hao. Lu Ming, how is the inheritance? Qiu Yingying asked curiously.